Download the My Hingham app today and report issues and get information on town government with ease. Available on the App Store and Google Play. You can submit service requests or gain information with just a few taps on your phone. Using the My Hingham app puts immediate access to town resources in the palm of your hand, including calendars of meetings and events, agendas for upcoming meetings, building permit filing options, online bill payment options, and info about our boards, committees, departments, and services. For more information, please scan the QR code on your screen.
Being held in person and/or remotely as an alternate means of public access pursuant to Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2025 and all other applicable laws temporarily amending certain provisions of the open meeting law. You are hereby advised that this meeting and all communications during this meeting may be recorded by the town of Hingham in accordance with the open meeting law. If any participant wishes to record this meeting, please notify the chair at the start of the meeting in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20F, so that the chair may inform all other participants of said recording. Is anyone recording this meeting tonight?
Christian Matron with WA.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Yep. All right. Next item on the agenda. I'm going to know for the record, participating in tonight's board meeting for the Select Board are board members Liz Klein, Julie Straley, and myself, William Ramsey, Chair. With that, next item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. For those who are willing and able, please face the flag of our nation. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes. I believe we have one set of minutes to approve this evening. Are you ready to proceed, Julie?
Yep.
Liz?
Yes.
All right, with that, I take a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes dated August 26, 2025.
Second.
All those in favor, Julie?
Aye.
Liz?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. The motion carries unanimously. Next item on the agenda is consider the application for a restaurant common victular all alcoholic beverages licenses by Salty Days of Hingham, LLC, doing business as Salty Days, 19 Shipyard Drive, Hingham. Sean McDaniel, manager applicant, requested continuance until September 16, 2025. So that matter will be taken up next week on September 16th. Next item on the agenda is consider the application for a change of ownership interest of Paragon Funding Group 3 LLC, doing business as Wahlburgers, 19 Shipyard Drive in Hingham. I believe we have Alan McKenna. Alan, good evening. Come up to the podium. Just state your name and address if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Alan McKenna, 6 LeClaire Drive, here actually on behalf of Hemingway and Barnes Counsel for Wahlburgers. Thanks for having us. This is a straightforward change of ownership interest and a change of LLC manager. This relates to the Wahlburgers restaurant in Hingham, which is owned by Wahlburgers Holding Company, LLC. And we have an existing member, Hy-Vee, that is selling its 25% interest to another existing member closest to the burger. And as part of that transaction, Hy-Vee will be resigning as a LLC manager for Wahlburgers Holding Company. It's been approved by all required corporate authority, and we're just asking that the board approve it and proceed it to the ABCC.
Great, thank you very much. Tom, is everything in order from the police department's perspective and your offices look at the application?
Yes, it is.
All right. Any questions for the board? Liz?
No questions or concerns.
Julie?
No questions.
All right. Do any members of the public have any questions about this agenda item? All right, seeing none, I'll take a motion.
I make a motion to approve the request of Paragon Funding Group, III, LLC, doing business as Wahlburgers, 19 Shipyard Drive, Hingham, Massachusetts, for a change of ownership interest in accordance with the application for amendment, change of officers, stock or ownership interest filed with the town of Hingham on August 5th, 2025, subject to the approval of the Alcoholic Beverages Control Commission.
Second.
All those in favor by roll call. Julie?
Aye.
Liz?
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. Motion carries unanimously. Alan, good to see you again.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Good to see you.
Thank you.
All right, next item on the agenda is a joint meeting with the Sewer Commission to interview candidates for the vacancy on the Sewer Commission. I believe we have one potential candidate left, Dr. Richard Eisen. And I'm going to invite Joe to call his board to order and hopefully adopt some language.
Yeah. I'm going to call the meeting of the Sewer Commission to order and incorporate by reference what you said earlier about Zoom.
Great, awesome. I didn't know you were the chair clerk. My apologies. All right. So tonight, obviously, I believe we just have one applicant left.
Yes.
So what I'd ask everybody to do is limit your questions to 2 questions each. You can ask whatever you want. And then after we speak with Dr. Eisen, we'll discuss internally whether or not we want to vote tonight or wait. But we'll proceed that way. Any questions?
No, I'd just like to make an introductory statement saying that I asked Dr. Eisen to apply. I think he's exceptionally well qualified, not only because of his medical background as a physician, but because of his commitment to the community. And I would ask Dr. Eisen to go to the podium so that he can introduce himself and then respond to any questions that this board or the select board might have.
Great. All right, Dr. Eisen, good evening.
Good evening.
We did receive your CV. Thank you for that. I'm just going to, my only sets of questions are going to be, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you want to be on the Sewer Commission.
I've been a resident of the Hingham community for over 20 years. I did move out for a short period of time, lived in Hanover, but don't hold that against me. I moved back to Hingham in 2004, and I retired several years ago from medical practice, and I'd like to give back to the community, and I feel that my background as a physician really makes it clear to me that the importance of the Sewer Commission and maintaining a proper sewer, operating sewer and maintaining it in good order to prevent vector-borne diseases and also waterborne diseases. I'm also very analytical. I've developed a ability for communication skills, et cetera, working with others, and I feel I can contribute positively to the committee.
Great. Well, thank you for that, Doctor. We get quite a few lawyers and finance folks applying for town government, not a lot of doctors, so it's great to have someone with your background applying. So I'll turn to Liz for any questions or comments.
Great, thank you, Bill. Thank you for applying. It's nice to meet you. I guess I have one question with 2 parts. What do you see as the biggest opportunities and obstacles for our sewer system and infrastructure?
Well, I understand that there are various leaks in the system that need to be repaired. There's also pumping stations that are near salt water that need to be replaced or moved. And apparently there's some illegal hookups that need to be managed. There's now an ordinance for some pumps to be drained outdoors so we don't overtax the sewer system. And I think there's also the issue that Joe spoke to me about of the possibility of merging the Sewer Commission and the Water Commission. And I understand that many towns have the 2 of them combined for various reasons.
Excellent. Yes, that is a topic I'm sure we'll want to discuss further. And you bring up the resiliency that certainly having the pump stations near the coast is a risk for us and certainly top of mind. So thank you.
Okay, Julie.
Thank you, and thank you for your interest in serving the town and serving on the Sewer Commission. And you sort of answered one of my questions that I had about sewer and water possibly combining in the future. But I wanted to know if you had, at this point, you're just coming into it, but if any thoughts about long-range goals for this town sewer system?
That's a really good question. I don't know enough about the Sewer Commission and what what's on the agenda. I have looked at some of the minutes and reviewed those and saw some of the outstanding issues. The minutes weren't available for the most recent meetings. So I'm interested in finding out what those issues might be and helping to address them, but I don't have any thoughts on that right at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
Clark, I'll turn it over to you.
Well, let's see. I really don't have a lot of questions to ask because But I wanted to advise you that the sewer commission has changed significantly from like 20 years ago when it was very hands-on and micromanaged to now we have a really, really competent manager. And we need to, and will you be willing to support making sure that we set some goals that we can achieve? Well, the biggest problem is we can't expand the sewer system right now because the MWRA won't let us, and we lost a lawsuit. And if we have any way to get around it, we built a second system in Hull that talks to Hull, and we have to renegotiate that contract. That, by the way, is very expensive. So how do you feel about doing capital investment now in order to lower the rates in the future? The softball.
That's a very tough question for me to answer. However, I will give it take a stab at it. I think it's important to look at the budget and see what we have available for capital expenditures at this point in time. I think certainly it's wise to put money up front and make sure that we have an efficient system. And saving money in the future is certainly a good goal, but I think there are a lot of things to certainly look at, and I don't have enough knowledge at this point in time to know exactly what our capital budget is and what the costs will be to do the projects that you've mentioned.
Yeah, I just have one other thing. What do you think is happening when the amount of flow goes up by a factor of 3 or 4 during wet periods as compared to dry periods? Do you think that's a bad thing?
I suspect that it would be a very bad thing, yeah. The sewer system, if it can't handle the additional flow, especially with the rainwater added as a factor, I think that would be a problem that certainly should be addressed.
You passed the test.
Okay.
So, Dr. Eisen, so you and I were founding members of the Children's Melanoma Prevention Foundation. And as part of that, I got to see not only your medical side, but your business side. And I'm hoping that your skills, your analytical skills that you talked about at the beginning would be applied here. Because there are a number of issues that really call for good finance, good management, and I think you bring those skills. So I really don't have a question because I've asked you all the questions before I asked you to join us. I will just say that I've worked with you in a number of settings. I'm an attorney and I've represented Dr. Eisen in various business transactions. As I said, I've served with him on nonprofit boards, and I'm just really in awe that you're willing to join us and look forward to working with you.
Well, I hope to be a quick study.
You are. And so I would suggest to the chair that we move forward with the vote unless your members want to have further discussions.
Let me see how people feel about that. What are your thoughts?
I feel comfortable moving forward, and I'm sure there's urgency to have a new member added.
Since we have our next meeting next week.
Yes.
Yes.
Good.
I'm fine to proceed.
Okay. All right. So, Dr. Eisen, thank you. With that,
Okay, thank you.
With that, I would take a motion for an appointment.
I'll make a motion that the Select Board and Sewer Commission appoint Richard Eisen to the Sewer Commission to serve until a permanent member is elected at the 2026 town election.
Second.
All those in favor by roll call. Liz.
Aye.
Julie.
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Joe.
Aye.
And I'm an aye as well. The motion carries unanimously. Dr. Eisen, thank you very much for your interest and your willingness to serve.
Thank you.
Thank
I said earlier, it's wonderful to have people of diverse professional backgrounds involved in town government, so thank you.
So I need to have a motion.
I'll make a motion to adjourn the sewer commission.
Second. Roll call.
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Thank you for joining us,
Thank you.
gentlemen.
Good
It
to
was a
see
pleasure.
you.
Hopefully you'll stick around.
Good to see you.
All right.
Get started.
The next item on the agenda is slated for 6:30 PM, so we cannot start until 6:30. So the board will be in recess until 6:30 PM. Thank you. The Hingham Select Board is called back into session. I'm going to note to my respective chairs that I have read the remote language in accordance with Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2025, so the chairs should feel free to adopt that language if they would like. Let me turn the advisory committee, and Carol, if you want to call your board meeting to order, go ahead.
Call the meeting of the advisory committee to order and adopt the language previously read by the select board chair.
Tom?
Call the meeting of the Senior Center Building Committee to order under the terms we've already read.
Excellent.
Apply to the open meeting.
Thank you. And for the record, this is the joint meeting with the Advisory Committee and the Hingham Center for Active Living Building Committee for the Hingham Center for Active Living Building Design and Programming discussion. So before I turn it over to the design team, Chris and his team, wanted to note just a couple things. First of all, I want to thank the Advisory Committee for your questions. They were excellent questions. Appreciate everybody engaging and diving into it. Tonight, we will, the design team will address the lion's share of those questions. A lot of questions came in regarding cost, and we don't have those numbers yet. We anticipate having the cost numbers at the end of the month or the first week of October. So questions regarding costs will be deferred to a later meeting, but the questions regarding programming and engagement and some of the other great questions that you submitted will be addressed this evening, all right? So what I'll do is I'll have the design team do its presentation, the select board will ask questions, I'll have the building committee ask questions as well, then we'll go to advisory because I anticipate you'll have the most questions, and then we'll have public comment, both from those that participated on Zoom and those in the room. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Chris. Chris, if you could just identify yourself for the record and your team so people know who's talking to them.
So, thanks, Bill. I'm Chris Wanty, project architect with EDM Studio. Colleague of mine is on the Zoom, Doug Gallo. He is our senior center design specialist with Lifespan Design Studios, and Dan Pilati here as the OPM with P3. So Dan was going to just kick the meeting off with a quick description of where we are in the process.
Is that okay, Mr. Chairman?
Of course, go ahead.
So we are the OPM. After you approved the programmatic design and became a feasibility study with your town meeting vote, we are beginning, we've begun the process of getting a full design and a bid in hand. And I wanted to just quickly go through some of the targets that we do and some of the acronyms that we constantly talk about so everybody kind of knows what we're talking about. The first major goal that we have is called schematic design. And all public projects, we do schematic design. And schematic design for this project is not the end of changing design. It is us saying that we've achieved the programmatic goals, showed that the program can fit within the constraints of what we've designed. It doesn't mean it can't be tweaked. It doesn't mean it can't be moved. But it shows that we've met that goal. At the end of schematic design, we ask for an estimate. And I am sure that the advisory committee is most interested in the estimate of what the initial estimate comes in at. We're actually going to do 3 estimates on this project. So the conclusion of schematic design, of course, is the review of the estimate. While we are waiting for that to come in, we start the process of design development, which is the second major phase of the project design. Design development will change the design a little bit as we push to put the building systems in place, the HVAC systems, the structure, electrical components, how we make all those parts and pieces fit in real time and in real space will occur during design development. And any tweaks to the program that we've received through feedback. We've already reduced the size of the building by 10% since the initial vote at your annual town meeting last year based on input while keeping the program intact. So we are working our way to achieve the goals of the feedback that we have received. Upon the completion of design development, which we call DD a lot, for time saving, we will do another estimate. Each time we do an estimate, the plans actually get developed a little bit further. They're actually the baseline to which we call the third phase, which is the construction documents. The actual blueprints to which the bidders will bid on are called CDs, or construction documents. And the CD phase, midpoint, we will do a third estimate to make sure that we are on target with costs, we are on target with all the parts and pieces working, and the constructability of the building is such that it's an easy build and a quality build with quality materials. All of those things start coming into play between DD and CD. In the middle of all that, on a parallel track, this is a Chapter 149 project. We will begin the process of pre-qualifying subcontractors and pre-qualifying general contractors. You'll see notices in the paper of that beginning sometime around the beginning of November, mid-November, with that concluding towards the end of December, so that we're ready to have the selected pre-qualified bidders and filed sub-bidders ready for the actual bidding process, which is a public bidding process, which will begin in the end of February. Our goal is to have a bid in hand for your annual town meeting, so that we're not playing with guess numbers, we're playing with real numbers. And since this is a 149 project, it is a project that is bonded, so we'll be guaranteed to get the project completed with a performance bond and a payment bond. So that's basically the process to which we're going through, and I just wanted everybody to understand that, where we are. So right now, the schematic design's completed, and we're waiting on the schematic design estimate. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So we had set this presentation up to really dive into the programming and the demographics data. So that's the agenda that's set for today is myself, Doug Gallo, who I introduced, is going to be speaking, but also Jennifer Young, the director of the center, and Beth Ralou from the committee is also going to be doing some speaking, depending on the category. So we're going to go through some demographic and research data, just a highlight of all some of the data that we've been using to work our program. Doug's going to go through the architectural program, define the actual program, what is an architectural program, and start to look at the individual spaces. So that's when we move into the existing versus the proposed comparison. We're going to be looking at each room individually, going space by space, and explaining the activities that are currently happening in the center, what the new space is designed for, and what we can do with the new space that we're going to be designing. And then we'll walk through the floor plan and the building layout just to give everybody a sense of what's in the building and how things are located in proximity to each other. And then we'll just do a quick overview of the exterior and the interior design renderings that we presented a few weeks ago to give everybody a sense of what we're envisioning for the aesthetics of the building. So I will warn everybody, there's a lot of slides and a lot of information on each slide, so apologize for the small text on the screen in advance. We have a lot of data to go through, but we will be putting this slide up on the website after the meeting, so if anybody wants to dive further into the design data that we're presenting, it will be available afterwards. So I'm going to pass this part of the presentation over to Beth and let Beth run through the demo part of it.
Okay, thank you everyone for being here tonight. I'm going to try to go through this pretty quickly. I know some of you, most of you have heard a lot of these numbers, but just with some new participants here and people that might listen to the recording, I'm going to run through some of the data. So right here, this is just basically the buckets of the contributors that really brought us to this point in time, and I'm going to quickly go through them. The 15 years of community engagement and advocacy, I think we've reviewed that over and over. Recognition of inadequate space, insufficient parking, outdated features, all factors that have inhibited efforts to increase participation, awareness, and the impact of this essential resource. Diverse needs in current estimated size have been discussed since 2011, perhaps even earlier. I joined the COA in 2012. COA discussions back in 2011 focused on the impact of the increased senior population on space needs. A facilities subcommittee was established. Peer visits were initiated back in 2011, and a path of advocacy was established. 2 related committees were appointed, Town Hall Study Committee in 2015 and our Building Committee in 2020. Tonight's meeting is number 62 of the Building Committee. We've accumulated a tremendous amount of qualitative and quantitative data, and we're excited to be here tonight. UMass was commissioned by the town of Hingham to conduct 2 community needs assessments, and those all were earlier on 2013, recognizing the needs were growing. And then 10 years later, we re-engaged with UMass to conduct another needs assessment with more focus on the senior center needs. The town has conducted a couple parking studies, and we have reviewed and relied on Cal reports over many, many years. So I'm not really going to go into Jennifer and Chris and Doug will be going over the programmatic and design innovation. I do want to thank Chris, the design team, Doug, Brian, Tim, I believe, is here, all of you for your guidance during site evaluations and multiple design revisions, and just for bringing clarity and helping us advance this really important 15-year project. So now I'm just going to do a few of the demographic highlights. I did want to emphasize, too, throughout this process that we've really emphasized community engagement. We've conducted 62 public meetings. We have conducted numerous surveys. EDM did a survey. UMass did several surveys. We really encourage your continued feedback, and we appreciate how you are helping us inform this design process. So, Chris, next slide, please. So we'll run through some of the demographics. So nationally, by 2030, for the first time in history, individuals over age 60 will outnumber under 18. The past population projections that were done during the earlier UMass needs assessment for Hingham are now a reality. Close to 8,000 residents, and I'll put it out there right now, 1,400 roughly at Linden Ponds. 32% are over age 60. That's a higher rate than the Massachusetts average. Close to 11,000, approaching 50% of residents are over age 50. Easy to remember. Almost 50% over 50. The number of residents 60 plus is projected to reach over 9,000 by 2030 and close to 40% by 2035, continuing to grow during this epic era of aging. Average life expectancy was 49 in 1900, and we're now approaching 80. In terms of, next slide, please. And so this is just an overview. So this is town census data, and you can look at age cohorts that are color-coded there and see the number of residents in each as well as the percentages. And this is just a good place for us to look at and just, again, review the participation guidelines, which we have reviewed before. They're actually the same guidelines that are in place today. So basically, residents age 60 and over will have prioritized access to programs and services, and this is because of funding that is available through the Older Americans Act, and the numbers are calculated in terms of what amount of funding will be distributed based on the 60-plus cohort. And then adults under age 60 will be welcome, as they are now, to participate in programs. And then there is some confusion, I know, on intergenerational programming. There won't be, open hours necessarily when this opens, but as we have now intergenerational programs, we're going to continue to build those and grow those as we have the capacity to do that. Next slide, please. Okay, so Chris, can you go to the next one, actually? Yeah, so these are just a few other highlights. So these are mostly, again, U.S. Census data. The American Community Survey is conducted over a 5-year period for averages in between the decennial census collections. So with the large and growing older population, we have diverse needs and interests. So this is data for Hingham. The desire to age in the community, which is broadly recognized usually in surveys as around 90% respond that they want to age in their community where they've built comfort and familiarity. So in Hingham, we see this reflected in the fact that the majority, 81% of Hingham's households are owned or rented by residents 45 plus. And it's almost split 50-50 between like the 45 to 69, the 69 and up. Solo aging, which you may be reading about, it's been in the news a lot the last couple years. It's a national trend, and it's in Hingham very pronounced. Many residents age 65 plus live alone. We're at about just over a third. 62% live with others, and around 4% are in group quarters. So that would include skilled nursing facilities, college dorms, correction facilities, that kind of property. And then I added a couple data points from the Massachusetts Healthy Aging Community Profile 2025. That is something that's assembled by several health insurance, hospitals, UMass is involved. And these are specifically related to health. And this data applies to the 65 plus population. In Hingham, 63% report 4 or more out of 15 chronic health conditions, and 17% with Alzheimer's disease or another form of dementia. I just want to point out the map on the right there is color-coded, and for both of those data points, Hingham is higher than state averages. So that's something, you know, I can put this up on the town site, some of this data, but it's quite a lengthy report. Okay, next slide, please. Or actually, it might be the one before. Yes. So these are just a couple of questions that were included in the UMass needs assessment in 2022. And let me just get my notes here. So caregiving was recognized as an issue among older residents. 30% of the survey respondents did report that they have served in the role as a caregiver, 31% to a person with dementia. And if you look at the color-coded bars there, the blue shows in quite high levels, especially among the rising and younger seniors, that they found that to be very challenging. So that is something that we want to think about when we're thinking about the population related to aging. And then in terms of the risk of, as we age, changing your driving habits or no longer driving, one of the survey questions was, did you miss medical appointments due to transportation as a barrier? And you can see that that is around 27% among those who don't drive and those who drive with modifications. So again, just a couple of data points to reflect what kinds of resources we need as a community. And some of the things that I just described, we are going to be showing how the resources and services are provided by Jennifer and our wonderful team in Hingham right now, and how, as we move forward, we are going to have so much more potential to do that. Okay, next slide. Okay. And this is just sort of the heart of the whole project. So we reviewed some of the interests and needs. And really in the middle, there's just some data there around the research that has grown over the years to demonstrate that these centers are a historic and vital resource, and they really do impact our health journey, our health status. And even, I wanted to mention too, I didn't comment on financial insecurity, but just knowing that these centers exist to provide relief for people who are experiencing financial insecurity, not to add to the burden. And when Jennifer goes through the overview of some of the programs and services that are offered here at low or no cost, you will see how that relief system is set in place. And then in the middle here, we just have some of the research that has contributed to elevating senior centers as part of our healthcare network. So just looking at among older residents who participate, they're experiencing well-being across several dimensions. And we also are seeing growing research on mechanisms through which social and civic engagement and intergenerational engagement are really impacting health status. I think I've mentioned before that the Surgeon General has, the former Surgeon General, has equated the detrimental impact on health status. Isolation is the equivalent of smoking 15 cigarettes a day, so it's quite a shocking fact. So I think, and then the one last thing I did want to read is, just quickly, is when I was going through the report, the Healthy Aging Report, at the end of it, the last line says, Hingham's community resources to support healthy aging include their Council on Aging, 3 assisted living facilities, a hospice agency, a public library, 9 primary care providers, and 3 skilled nursing facilities. So there's a pretty short list, and there we are. So I just want to emphasize that this is an important part of our network of social determinants of health, and I really hope we can move this forward. Thank you.
So next, we wanted to dive a little bit further into the architectural program. And I'm going to let Doug Gallo speak a little bit about what an architectural program means and how we come about different size spaces.
Thanks, Chris. Through the process during the feasibility study, we started with gathering public input with some focus groups, with a survey, with public meetings. But at the same time, or soon after that information was gathered, we really needed to talk with the staff of the Senior Center and understand what the Senior Center does today and what they want to do in the future. What we were focused on was ultimately creating an architectural program. An architectural program essentially is a list of rooms and spaces to determine how large the building needs to be to meet the needs that are established by the Senior Center. So when we start talking about what's going on at the Senior Center, we don't want to talk about rooms. We don't want to sit down and say, okay, what rooms do you need? We want to determine that based on the activities, the programs, and the functionality within the Senior Center. What are the programs that are being offered? So we sat down with Jen and her staff. We gave them a questionnaire to fill out before we actually sat down to really review all of these issues. We identified all of the programs that are currently offered today, what programs have been offered in the past, what programs and services they want to offer in the future, what aren't they offering today because the building doesn't allow them to do so. And we're also looking at, in addition to scheduled activities, the possibility for drop-in activities. What are the impromptu things that can happen within a senior center? Also looking at the issues of personal services and counseling, and Jen will get into much more detail about all of these things. And then we also wanted to look at outdoor activities. What do we want outside of the building itself? And so we started to pull that information together. We sat down with Jennifer for 2 days, face-to-face, really went through this, and we started to develop a list of dedicated use and flexible use spaces, and really trying to understand how these spaces were going to be used. We looked at the different types of activities and services. We looked at target group sizes. If we have an exercise class, for an example, what's the appropriate size for that exercise class for a single instructor? And what's the appropriate size per use of each individual for those spaces? We also looked at the associated infrastructure needs, the furniture needs, the equipment needs, the storage needs for all of these different types of activities. And then we also obviously wanted to talk to the staff about what their needs are from a functional standpoint within the building, also an operational standpoint of how the building works and flows. Certainly we looked at restrooms. When we look at all of these issues, We understand that some of these issues are regulated by code, but in reality, what we want to look at is what's appropriate for an older adult population. We want our restrooms to exceed the minimum requirement of fixtures required and space them out throughout the building, because we understand the issues of toileting and need to use restrooms with older adults increases as we get older. We also looked at building systems, corridors and circulation. We try to eliminate as much wasted space in corridors and circulation. We try to be very efficient in those use. And then we also get into the issue of wall thickness, and I'll talk about that a little bit more. Most importantly, we wanted to know about what the needs were going to be for today, for tomorrow, and for generations in the communities to come. So as we went through this, going through all of those issues, we ended up with a list of rooms and spaces. This is what we came up with finally. This was larger originally, and we really went back and reviewed each one of those spaces to determine whether or not we felt that it was redundant or was something more than that was necessary. As you can see, in addition to square footage, we've identified dimensions. We think it's really critically important to really evaluate those spaces based on their usage, the furniture layout options that would be in those rooms, and we'll show those in a little bit. But as we go through and really look through all of the uses and all of the activities and programs, this was the final list we came up with. And as you can see over to the right, there's also all the restrooms are identified. So when you look at all of the net square footage, which basically is all of these square footage numbers added up, we come up with 18,558 square feet, and that includes the restrooms. That's the net square footage of activity space, office space, program space, restroom space, and utility space within the building. Then you've got to add what we call an efficiency factor to this building. And we have found over the decades of designing senior centers that that efficiency factor is somewhere around 27 to 28%. And what that includes is all of your wall thicknesses. With all of these rooms, you'd be very surprised how much square footage actually is wall thickness. The exterior wall of the building, obviously, which is thicker than the interior walls, and then the circulation throughout the building. And we come up with the total number of 25,950 square feet. And that's the program as it currently exists today. The other thing that we started to look at, or from the result of that information, if Chris, if you could move on to the next slide, that then helps us look at what parking needs are needed on site. And we know that was one of even the questions that came up from the advisory committee, was the issue of parking. The parking zoning requires one space for 3 people within the building, and that comes up to 135 spaces based on the potential occupancy of the building. But over decades of designing senior centers, what we have found is that's way undersized for parking needs in a senior center. And we have found that 6 to 7 spaces per 1,000 square feet gets us the amount of parking we need on a daily basis. And that would put us somewhere in the neighborhood of about 180 spaces. Looking at the site, really evaluating the site and circulation and vehicular traffic through the site, we ended up with 161 parking spaces, which we're pleased with. We also look at the accessibility spaces required by zoning and code, and then we take that number and double or even triple it, because again, we know with an older population, we're more likely to have individuals that will be able to legally use the accessible parking spaces. We also want to create that parking lot in that site circulation and vehicular traffic flow for safety, ease of use by drivers and pedestrians, and you'll see that when we look at that later. We can explain that a little bit more. And then also look at the outdoor activities and amenities outside. Patio space, do we want some outside gardens, game areas, and so on. Walking trails around the site and into the park and into the ball fields around the overall park area, and we'll show those to you after. Looking at the overall occupancy within the building, at 50% of occupancy at any one time, we anticipate that there will be 200 people in the building. If we go to 75% at one time, we're up to 300 people in the building. So as you can see, that parking count really isn't oversized. What we find at most senior centers, people drive alone. They come and go as they choose. There may be 2 people in a car, but very rarely are people coming to a senior center carpooling with more than 2 people in a car. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Chris real quickly, and then Jen and I are going to get into the rooms, room by room, to give you more understanding about that.
So as we mentioned at the top, we're going to go through room by room and really try to dive into some detail on what are we planning on happening in each room and why. But before that, we just wanted to put a quick slide up here to give everybody a little bit of context that we have the proposed plan here on the top left part of the screen. As folks have mentioned, we've gone through many iterations of the floor plan. We think we're on version 5 at this point, so we've gone through a few different iterations, but we wanted to compare what we currently have to what's existing, just to give everybody a sense of what we have and where we are proposing to go. And when you zoom into the existing, you can see the types of spaces that we have. We really have a little admin area, a very small kitchen, some circulation space, bathrooms, a little bit of storage, and 4 what we've been calling multi-purpose spaces. All 4 spaces don't really have a dedicated use right now because of the size limitations. Jennifer and her staff, they really have to use every single square inch of the facility. So not having any dedicated functions to any rooms does really significantly limit what types of programs can be provided in the current center. So Doug, I'm going to pass it back to Doug just to go through each room, and he's going to talk a little bit about the architecture of the room, and then Jen's going to talk about the activities in each room. So go ahead, Doug, take it.
Yeah. So looking at the large multi-purpose room, about 2,350 square feet. This is a multi-purpose space. It is dividable, so we can have two spaces, and also we've made it so it's expandable into the adjacent cafe area, and you'll see that in the floor plan. But what we did, as I mentioned earlier, when we talk about the different types of activities that are going to go on in a space, we look at furniture layout, we look at equipment layout, and we space that furniture out based on trying to create accessibility throughout the space. People with walkers, wheelchairs, canes, people moving at different speeds. We want anybody who comes into this space to be able to sit anywhere they want to, rather than in many cases when rooms are too small, somebody in a wheelchair is told you can sit over here, you can't sit over there. We also look at the different types of furniture layouts, the different types of furniture that's going to be used. That's why there's that table and chair storage closet, which is accessible both from the multi-purpose room and the corridor, because some of these rooms we will be switching out furniture. We also don't want, as it exists in the senior center today and in many senior centers, of just pushing furniture to the walls when you're not using it. Obviously, it takes up square footage, usually somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 to 20%. So the rooms are actually smaller than you anticipate because you're just stacking tables and chairs over in the corner. We want to be able to get those tables and chairs out of the space. So what you're seeing here is a full use of the room in a banquet type facility. We can get about 120 people in the space. That normally figures out to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 square feet per person. A caterer will tell you can get 15 square feet per person, even get 12 to 10 square feet per person. The answer is yes, you can, but somebody using a walker or using a wheelchair can't get around the space at all. So we try to maximize the square footage per person to let the rooms be as usable as possible. And then, as you can see, and Jen's going to talk about this, all of the different types of activities that can go on in this room or in these 2 rooms when it's divided. And there are various furniture layouts that we also looked at, but this is kind of the common use banquet or meals program to the full capacity within the room. So Jen, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you, Doug. I'm just going to sort of lay out the slide for you guys a little bit. I'm going to walk with, as Chris mentioned, with Doug through each one of the rooms that's in the proposed plan. You can see on the left-hand column, you'll see a list of activities that also repeat on the right-hand side. Those are activities that we're currently holding, not necessarily in this space. So in the slide that Chris showed with our existing floor plan, we have the 3 program rooms and a living room. So all of the programs that I'm going to go through tonight happen across those spaces as the rooms and schedule allows. So what that means is we offer a wide variety of programs and services, and many of them have been long-standing and expected programs to be offered at the center, right? So we've been in that space for close to 30 years, and so have some of the programs that we're running. And they're still full. They're still exciting, and people still want to have those programs. The challenge becomes when we try to introduce something new. So that happens sparingly, and it happens at the cost of the original programs. So often, as you'll see, we have dinner events, men's discussion groups, lunch and learns, book clubs. They happen infrequently, and we're canceling fitness classes, educational programs, and lunches to accommodate for that, because we're trying to meet everyone's needs where they are at. We can go on to, actually, before we go on to the next slide, you can see that there's a variety of programs that are in green that we should be able to offer and are not able to offer currently because of the restrictions that we have with the space, with the room sizes, and obviously with the parking. For an example, Alzheimer's conferences, resource fairs, wellness retreats, health and safety fairs, and wellness fairs are all programs that all centers that serve seniors should be able to provide, and we are not able to do so. We can move on to the next slide.
Real quick, Chris, move back, I'm sorry. Go back to the other slide first. Just so you're oriented, what we're now going to talk about is the main kitchen, which is to the upper left-hand corner of the multipurpose room. So up above the table and chair storage and behind the table and chair storage, here we are at the kitchen. And I know there's been some discussion about the kitchen, looking from early design that was in the feasibility study to where we are today, and the size of the kitchen has grown in that effort because we've added a food service consultant to the design team that wasn't part of the feasibility study. And the layout you're looking at now is the layout that we currently have in the kitchen. It does give us a walk-in freezer and a walk-through to the cooler. It gives us a cooking space. It gives us a window for serving out to the dining room area when this is used, when the multi-purpose room is a dining. It has food prep. Also has storage for what's being used in the kitchen during the day, that day, and then also a warewashing area. And there's also a kitchen coordinator's office who is to be involved in ordering food and making sure the meals are being done accordingly with what's going on in the kitchen today. So that's how the size of the kitchen ultimately became a little bit larger than what we had originally scheduled in the feasibility, but now we're putting actual design with all of the equipment layouts here. One of the other things that has been discussed in the overall design is who can use this kitchen. And this is a health code issue. The people preparing the food within this kitchen have to be licensed in the commercial kitchen, and it's not a kitchen to be used by the participants of the senior center to be able to go in and bake cookies or have a spaghetti dinner or anything like that. So this is the main kitchen within the building. Jen?
Okay, thanks, Doug. So we currently do have a kitchen down at the center. It is in use by our Meals on Wheels program Monday through Friday from 8 o'clock in the morning until 1:30 in the afternoon. We cannot cross-schedule, so that eliminates it as a source for us to use currently at the center. By providing a Meals on Wheels space, which we will get to next, it's going to free up the opportunity for us to utilize the kitchen area. As Doug had mentioned, you can see it on there as well, it would be used to help prep the food that would be served in the cafe, which is another space we will talk about a little bit later on as well. It would allow us proper food storage, emergency food and dry food for folks with food insecurities to keep on hand. It would also serve to help process our congregate meal, which is served 2 times a week currently on Mondays and Wednesdays at 12:30 for a donation of $2.25. It also provides us the opportunity, as I mentioned, food storage, to store turkeys at Thanksgiving. We partner with a lot of community agencies that help us to deliver services, and we currently have to turn down a lot of food donations that we could then turn over because we don't have the proper storage for such. We also had to eliminate the opportunity for breakfast events because we don't have the opportunity to use our own kitchen. So just this week, actually on Monday, we held a grandparents' brunch, which was catered by Stars, which does cost our folks a little bit more extra money for those services. But it's such an important opportunity for us moving forward for this space. And I'd like to go on to talk about the Meals on Wheels room as well.
Yeah, the Meals on Wheels room is a separate staging area. And Jen will get into the details on the Meals on Wheels program. But this is an area where food will be come into from out of the senior center, brought here, but then it needs to be processed and put into bags for the drivers to then run their routes. So this is a separate space, as you can see. It does have shelving, it does have counter and tabletop areas for working. There is also a desk in there for somebody, hand washing sink, but essentially they're processing the food into delivery bags, and then the drivers are coming and going. This is also located physically near an exterior door where the drivers will be parking their cars. So Jen, I'll let you go on about the program.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so for the Meals on Wheels, the staff and program is provided by South Shore Elder Services, also the cost of the meals. We provide the staging area. So a home-delivered meal, it's sort of like a prepackaged TV dinner. And it comes with a starch, milk, condiments, and dessert. They all arrive in Cambros and must be assembled before delivery. It's free to homebound consumers. I'm going to use this opportunity to educate everybody about the programs that are available. So it's free to homebound consumers, and it's also a gateway to other services. So it's a hugely important program. Right now, we're currently serving 40 to 50 Meals on Wheels a day out into the community, and that works out to about 10 to 12 routes that are delivered by volunteers who are also serving their time for South Shore Elder Services. Sometimes it's the only face-to-face contact that these consumers will receive the entire day. It's such an important service, and the delivery of it, the opportunities for our volunteers to catch problems before they can arise out in the community. Fortunate enough that I've seen some incidents that we were able to stop. A woman, and I'll go quickly through this, but it's just speaking to the importance of the program. One of our consumers had been stuck in a breezeway for 3 days over a weekend. She wasn't able to get up, she wasn't able to reach the phone, but the Meals on Wheels delivery driver was there on Monday and found her, and she did survive. It is such an important program. They're always looking for volunteers, so if you have any interest, reach out, let us know. But as Doug mentioned, this is a smaller style kitchen processing area. There's no commercial oven, there's no commercial refrigerator, there are small service areas, and there's a microwave for heating meals for consumers that are not allowed to prepare, cook, or use a microwave at home. Usually it's somebody that has a memory impairment. So as I mentioned, by providing an opportunity for this very important program to take place, it's going to free up a lot of opportunities for the rest of the center to engage in food services delivery. And the other thing I wanted to mention, with the Meals on Wheels is 10 to 12 routes also require 10 to 12 volunteers that are coming into the center not once, but twice a day. So they're coming in to pick up their route, and at the end of the day, they return their route because they also are returning their cooler bag, but they also touch base every day with the food services coordinator for Meals on Wheels to let them know, yes, Sally was home, Sally wasn't home, Sally had her doctor's appointment, this is what's going on. So want to move on. Thank you.
The other thing about the Meals on Wheels program is that room being used 5 days a week is being used essentially simultaneously as the kitchen is preparing to get the lunch program working. So it's not a matter of one space could be used while the other one's not being used. They are pretty much being used overlapping time. So then as we come in the main part of the building, the main entrance, straight ahead of you will be the cafe main lounge area. And it's one thing that we've seen over the decades that has really changed, probably over the last 15, 20 years in senior centers, is creating more lounge space, more space that's impromptu activities, that's not based on drop-in activities. So people have a place to go between the different activities, or just have a place to go and sit and enjoy being at the senior center. As you can look at this, it is glass across the top of the page here. That's going out to outdoor spaces across the back of the building. And the cafe is a place where you can get a cup of coffee, grab a smoothie, and people may just be in here sitting and chatting, playing games, sending text messages, checking their email, and so on and so on. But again, a comfortable space as you come in the building and have some point of reference to how the building starts to lay out. And again, I'll let Jen talk about what else is happening and how the cafe works differently than what goes on in the kitchen.
Thanks, Doug. So as Doug mentioned, the food service delivery model has really changed over the last decade. We will always still offer the congregate meal, which I mentioned. It's a donation of $2.25. But this is another opportunity for folks to eat on their own terms, on their own schedule. So if you came in and you wanted to meet your friend for a yoga class in the morning, you guys can have a smoothie afterwards. It's not, you have to wait until 12:30 to sit down with your friend to eat the same meal that everyone's eating. I think I mentioned this back in January at a presentation. But from the point of retirement, the average age of retirement, until average life expectancy, you will be preparing over 14,000 meals for yourself. It is a daunting number. It's awful to think about. With the grocery shopping, the meal prep, the planning, the cooking, the cleaning up afterwards, and the cost. So 14,000 meals. This is a place where anybody from the community can come, pop in any time that it's open, order a smoothie, a salad, a sandwich, a panini. You can sit down with your friends on your own terms.
Classroom, one of the things that we try to do in designing a senior center, and it is part of how we put the programming together, is to design different size spaces that are appropriately sized for different types of activities. So here, what we've got is the opportunity for a classroom, seminar tables and chairs. We could also take those out, put them over in the table and chair storage area, and just have rows of chairs, but we're showing a population. Originally, we had wanted to have about 48 people in the classroom. We downsized it a little bit in the effort of our downsizing. We didn't just cut square footage out. We evaluated how those room sizes would be changed by reducing the occupancy. But part of classroom and part of learning, what we've included here is a teaching kitchen. And one of the important issues with regard to funding that's available for congregate meals is nutritional education. And so here we have an opportunity for hands-on nutritional education. Jen's talking about all the different meals that you're going to prepare as you're in your later years. But there's also part of that nutritional education is cooking for one, cooking for two, cooking healthy food, how to prepare food appropriately if you have diabetes. And then there's also, taking a class on how to make pasta, taking a class on, on Cinco de Mayo of how to put together Mexican food, and it can be very much a socialization opportunity as well. So here we've got the classroom where we can rotate all of those tables and chairs and use it for visual connectivity with what's going on with the chef cooking. And then we've also created the chef's table, which we can rotate people out to come up and participate. So we have both here classroom opportunities and also teaching kitchen as part of that. And again, I'll let Jen go into some of the more details about the different types of activities that can occur in this space.
Okay. As I mentioned before, the activities that are on the left-hand side of the screen, we do currently offer. Some of them are monthly, and some are once a year, because that's what we can fit into the schedule right now. The goal for a lot of these programs, especially with education, lifelong learning, and discussion groups, is to meet multiple times a week, to have a variety of topics that are engaging for you, that are exciting, that you can participate in. If you look at some of the comparable communities that are in the area, they're offering 6, 7, 8 different educational programs a month, and most of them are series. You're familiar with the OLLI program, very much similar. We're working with Bridgewater State, I went to Bridgewater State, I apologize, that language will never leave. Bridgewater Senior College, and we're able to offer 2 programs a semester. Education, education, education. That is where our seniors are at, education, fitness, and food. So you can see again, all the programs on the right-hand side that are in green are all programs that we're not able to currently offer. We do run a cooking class. It happens once a month and it sells out before we even advertise it. The need is there, the interest is there. And as we look at some of the programs that we could and should be offering, heart-healthy meals, sodium-conscious meals, vegetarian, vegan, and celiacs preparing, freezer-friendly meals, budget-friendly cooking for one, baking, decorating. I could go on and on and on with all of the programs that we should be able to offer for folks on food prep. You're feeding your body, you're feeding your soul. And I wanted to mention also on the bottom, we have an AARP driver safety and education program. That is a program that we offer one time a year, and folks try to come in from all over the state to take this class. Once a year we offer it, we can fit 12 people into that program. So an opportunity like this, we'd be able to reach so many more folks out in the community. And, I wanted to share also, like Doug had mentioned, flip-flopping some of the furniture around. I also see this space as a really wonderful room for a lot of community support groups. And I will mention a lot of the support groups as we go through the spaces more and look at our conference room. But a lot of support groups will come with food. And this is the perfect opportunity for folks to be able to sit down and have really intimate conversations with each other in a space and break bread together.
So here's the den. This room has been called numerous things, but we decided den was probably the most appropriate. This is one of those lounge spaces. This is probably more of a quiet lounge, possibly a fireplace or fire feature in here. Some four tops, maybe for some cards or puzzles. We also looked at the possibility that this room would be able to be opened up directly to the corridor, but could also be closed off, and maybe that's a glass wall. For more privacy. And again, I'll let Jen talk about activities that can occur here, but this is another one of those lounge spaces for general impromptu activities going on.
Yeah, so we currently do have a den or a living room down at the center, which is what it was intentionally designed for, almost 30 years ago. It was a space that was supposed to be welcoming where people could grab a cup of coffee and sit down and socialize. Over the years, it's turned into another program space because that's what we needed. So right now, it is probably one of the loudest areas that we have at the center. We're currently offering these existing opportunities, socializing, a reading area, lounging, puzzles, and libraries and books. However, it's surrounded by a commotion of cards, mahjong tiles, and Scrabble tiles, always moving around. It's a conflict of sound and of interests. This room will be a cozy room for people to relax, read, work on a puzzle together, and people watch, what I like to call silently engaging. So we have a lot of people that come into the center, don't necessarily know what it is that they want to do. They just want to sit down. They want to be a part of something, and they want to observe. Generally, at some point, they're going to find that they're ready to engage with other folks. But I also, and I don't see it on here yet, and I'll talk to Chris about that, I'd love to see a Bluetooth record player in there for folks to listen to a library of music.
So we've got a cards room, cards game room. As we went through the architectural programming effort, the amount of games and table games and card games that are offered and played at the Senior Center is amazing. I mean, it really is wonderful. So when you're sizing this room, we figured that the card table was probably the best way to figure out how big this room needs to be. And with that, we felt that under certain circumstances and not extreme cases, the idea of 10 to 12 tables was very, very possible throughout use of the day, throughout the use of the week, throughout the use of the month and year. So again, I'll let Jen kind of hit upon all of the different activities that go on table games.
Mm-hmm. And when I talked about our long-standing and fully expected programs, a lot of them are cards and a variety of different games. What I want to highlight here is that we do offer instructional programs, again, albeit it is annually, one time a year. So if you want to come in and learn how to play Mahjong or Bridge or any of the games listed here, you have to wait until that one time a year so you can learn to play with your mom or so that you can learn to play with your friends and participate at the center. And also those programs sell out very quickly. So the idea, the intention behind this room, and every room at the center right now is a games room, is that we would be able to offer these programs multiple times a week. So if you like to play Bridge, you can come in on Monday, you can come in on Wednesday. You're going to play with different groups of people, but they're basically tournaments that take place. And you'll see, if you speak to other communities, 35, 40, 45 is not a large number. That's the going average right now for playing cards. What I wanted to mention about the space also is that we have so many different games. We're talking, they run anywhere from an hour and a half to 3 hours each program. These are not 50-minute games. Folks come in, they set up their tables, they set up their cards, they set up the candy bars that they bet with on the side, and it's anywhere from, like I said, 1.5 to 3 hours. That's a full room every single day from the moment we open until the moment that we close.
Here we've got a media room. This is a space that we've spent a lot of time talking about and really analyzing the need for. And it's something that we're seeing nationally, a lot more discussion about this type of space because it serves a unique purpose. And it also is extremely efficient in its sizing. What we had originally determined, and again, with regard to our reduction in size, we originally had this room set up for 80 fixed seats and the possibility of 30 additional chairs being brought in. What we've done is we've reduced that down to 60 fixed seats and the possibility of 20 chairs. The goal here is to set up a room that's very efficient for a size this many people. We've analyzed that if we wanted to do 60 people at seminar tables, the room would have to be about 450 square feet larger than this. If we wanted to take this square footage in itself and not have a tiered seating arrangement, we could get about 44 people into this room sitting at seminar tables. But one of the things that's important is the types of activities that are going on here are probably not 50-minute or 60-minute activities. In many cases, they're going to be 90 minutes, a couple of hours long. We want to create a seating environment that is comfortable and appropriate. We want to make sure that we've got opportunities with tablet arms, possibly even cup holders, so that we've got the opportunity to have all kinds of different learning experiences here as well. And then being able to view over top of people that are in front of you, whether it's for a movie, for an arts, for a lecture, or a speaking engagement. And again, I'll have Jen talk more about all the types of activities that she's envisioning would keep this room very active all week long.
Right, as I mentioned, lifelong learning educational programs, Bridgewater Senior University offering multiple different topics each week, but also looking at the entertainment piece, that's also an opportunity here. Book club readings, very popular right now is watching those documentary series on Netflix. If you're ever looking for a recommendation, come down to the center. We have plenty of folks that could tell you what to watch. Streaming concerts, streaming concerts that are coming up, but also looking into the history and streaming concerts from the 50s, 60s, 70s, enjoying those performances together with your friends, having folks that come in and want to watch a particular movie with their friends and say, hey, can we use this space? We really want to see X, Y, or Z. Yes, you can use the space to do that. TED Talks, virtual classes, theatrical and musical demonstrations. We have a lot of community partners that we work with. Hingham High School brought their jazz ensemble in last week. We could only fit 30 people in the room because all of their equipment, they needed space as well to spread out. Very popular program. We also work with the conservatory. We'd love to offer open mic nights. Let folks come in and share what their passions are. We have a memoir writing class right now, but we don't have an opportunity for them to share what they've written. I wanted to go back to the furniture that Doug was mentioning, and you can see if you're looking at the diagram on here that there's enough space in between these chairs so that if somebody needs to go to the restroom or take a break next to you, you in your 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s with your amazing joints and muscles don't have to get up over and over again out of your chair to let people pass by you. That's also beneficial to anybody that's in a walker or a wheelchair that needs to pass through. And also the furniture is designed in a way that if you're sitting there for 2 to 3 hours, you can still get up afterwards. Oh, I just want to, I'm sorry, Doug. I was going to put into perspective also that we're talking about 60 to 80 seats. And I know there was confusion early on when there was the label auditorium slapped on there. That was not the intention. But the comparison, just for everybody here to understand, is this media room, 60 to 80 seats, the Sanborn Auditorium is 300. So they are not the same spaces, not designed with the same intention.
Also, the way that this is laid out is nobody ever has to go further than 3 seats in to get to their seat. So you don't have long line of seating that creates the problem just to get in and out of your seat. So that was another consideration. The conference room, Jen mentioned the conference room earlier. Again, this is a smaller activity space. It can be used both by staff, but also is an activity space, so it has access from the administrative suite, but also from the general corridor. And again, all sorts of different types of activities. We're looking at a maximum capacity in here of about 14. So you've got smaller, intimate group, and that's the intent of the room. So again, Jen, I'll let you get more further into the types of activities and details.
Yeah, so we do currently offer some support groups, very infrequently, albeit. We have a low vision support group that meets monthly. We have a Parkinson's support group that also meets monthly. We should be able to offer significantly more. The list on here will include things like, caregiver support, Alzheimer's support, grief, stroke, grandparents raising grandchildren. We do offer grief support groups typically about once a year. We work with amazing community partners that come in and offer these services at no cost to our members and family members as well. If you're somebody that's providing care to somebody that has a memory impairment issue or dementia, you need to be able to come in and grab that support. Hoarding support, or we like to call it, taking care of your collectibles. Pain support groups, neuropathy support, the list can go on. And some of these groups will be held in the classroom, and it's going to depend on the group size, the topic, the intimacy of the group that's required, and if food's going to be involved.
Shared workspace is a very important area, serves multiple needs and multiple activities. A lot of people don't understand how much volunteer work there is at senior centers. Senior centers couldn't exist without volunteer activities and volunteers that come in to help in the senior center. So we created space specifically for that opportunity, but there's also programs that are offered throughout the year that will use this space rather than using other activity space and taking space away from other activities. So Jen, I'll let you talk more about that too.
Right, so currently we do have one desk for volunteers to work at. They rotate through there based on availability and what roles they're fulfilling at the center. In the last fiscal year, we had 89 volunteers that provided 5,614 hours of service. That equates to 3 full-time employees. And if you've been paying attention over the last couple of years, every time we have our volunteer luncheon, each year that number is continuing to grow. It's continuing to go up, and that's because we're being more creative with the opportunities that we're offering, and our volunteers are coming in with a broader skill set, more energy and passion, interest in trying new things. What this will allow us to do right here by having a shared workspace is to bring in 9 additional volunteers at the same time. And some of the roles that we do currently offer and we would like to continue to fulfill are confirming appointments for people, confirming rides that we're providing, data entry, registration assistance, for our 200 programs we're running a month, as a call center if you need some basic information, helping us with digital signage, print marketing, electronic marketing, program assistance, collating and printing. We still have to do that. media support, tax work-off opportunities. We need a space for our volunteers to feel welcomed when they come in, just as you would if you were going to work in your own office. One of the programs that I wanted to highlight that we do not and cannot offer is the AARP Tax Assistance Program, which would give us the opportunity to have 8 filers come in and 2 people to confirm those filings. It's free, simple tax filing for folks over the age of 60. And if it runs for 2 months out of the year, all of their files and their computers need to be locked away in a space that it will be kept safe when they're not using it. So for 2 months out of the year, if we were to operate that program, we would be able to provide 960 free simple tax filings to Hingham residents. What a cost savings that is. We're fortunate right now where some of our surrounding communities will take our members after they've provided services to their own communities. I also wanted to mention that the space is intended also to be flexible. And yeah, I read through all of the volunteer opportunities. So if anybody in this room wants to wear another hat, I've laid out those opportunities for you as well.
In addition to all of those volunteer activities, we've also identified space for professional services. We've got a health and wellness room for a nurse and other types of services, and then a consultation room also for additional services. And Jen could spend the rest of the night talking about how many services there are, but I'll let her hit the highlights on that right now.
I did highlight every single one on the list because they're all so important. Right now, we do have 2 Shine counselors that help, that volunteer their time with us. They are highly trained volunteers that provide health insurance counseling, which most of you might understand when it comes time for, retirement and you're looking at what your Medicare options are. Do you have an A? Do you have a B? Do you have a C? Do you have a D? These are all things that our Shine volunteers help you work through. And each year, all of those plans change costs. The medications that are covered change tiers. Those tiers change costs. Donut holes change. It's a whole training program. But as the population continues to grow, the need for that service is also going to be directly reflected in that growth as well. Other opportunities and programs that we do offer: financial advisor, hearing screenings, hearing aid cleanings, reflexology, blood pressure, flu, COVID, Shingrix shots, open office hours with government officials, consultation with care providers. So everything that takes place in these 2 spaces would be staffed by a mix of volunteers, professional free consultations, fee-based services, and nonprofit community partners.
Looking at an exercise dance studio, this room is sized assuming 50 square feet per activity, per individual, basically 7 by 7. That allows full range of motion for different types of aerobic activities. We've also got a mirror wall, which would be on the front, which would be the upside of this. Cubbies and benches so people can come in, take their jackets off, change their shoes, whatever, and then appropriate storage needs. This room is sized for 20 people. And again, with all the different activities that are going on in here, we'll be busy all day long. And let Jen talk about that again, too.
So currently at the center, we offer 9 different fitness activities each week. A couple of them actually do repeat throughout the week. And one thing I wanted to mention about the makeup of the space is that the flooring in an exercise studio is not the same as the flooring throughout the rest of the building. It's supposed to be easier on your joints, your knees, as you're moving around, or as you're on the floor on your Pilates mat. And there's an opportunity and a demand for so many more programs, especially for younger folks. I would love to bring in Zumba, karate, self-defense, Tai Chi, boxing, Heart and Hand, Fit Over 50, the list goes on and on, total body conditioning, cardio dance. A dedicated space that would meet the needs of these programs is wonderful. As I mentioned, we're programming so many different programs across our 3 to 4 spaces that we currently have. Anytime we bring in something new, like this week, we had our grandparents' brunch. Guess what? We had to cancel our fitness classes and we were able to move a couple downstairs, which creates a lot of chaos. But there's always something that's got to give. To have this dedicated space, which would be used from open to close every single day of the week, is really something wonderful. And you'll see, if you speak to other centers that have recently been built, they've never said, I wish we built this room smaller. It's completely the opposite. It's a mix of low-impact chair, high-impact courses with instructors that are certified to teach older adults, provide special attention and modifications to participants, and a lot of them are fee-based programs.
An equipped fitness room is something that we think is extremely important to be designed appropriately for older adults. As you can see here, each piece of equipment has access around it. If you think about maybe the local Y or a club, a gym that you may belong to, usually treadmills are literally 6 inches apart from each other. Here, we're always making sure there's space around each piece of equipment so an instructor, possibly even an aide, can help people get on and off of the piece of equipment. And you're not in a situation where you're so tightly packed into this room. But it's still, we're showing 14 pieces of various types of equipment. And as you can see, that they're all identified here. Jen, I don't know if there's anything additional you wanted to say about this, except for the fact that, again, the flooring material and the way the building is, the way the room is fitted out would be appropriate for an equipped fitness studio.
Yeah, I do want to say, I believe you mentioned like low-impact exercise equipment designed specifically for older adults. What's the difference between, a space like this and the one that's over here at Town Hall? This isn't in the corner of the basement of the building. If you're an older adult and you want to work out, you want to be in a space that's safe and designed for you. Glass walls in the middle of a bustling center, you're never going to be at risk for falling and being left there for hours on your own. I can't talk enough to the safety, the piece in a space just like this. And let's say you want to go in and your wife wants to have a program, you can go work out at the same time she's doing her yin meditation.
Next two spaces are art spaces. And again, in the original program, we actually had a third art space. We had a maker space. In the effort to try to reduce square footage, we decided to make the dirty arts room and the maker space a little bit larger as a single room, a little bit larger than one of the single rooms, and took that into account. But what we have found in programs that have serious arts, there are dirty arts and there are clean arts, and it's very important to be able to segregate those out so you don't have pottery dust in a room that's also going to be used for quilting and fiber arts and so on. We looked at various types of layouts of furniture, and this is just one layout of maybe a half a dozen different ways things could be laid out depending on the various activity. But I'll let Jen talk about clean arts and dirty arts kind of collectively here.
Okay. So with the Dirty Art Studio, as Doug had mentioned, we do a lot of work with textiles and fabrics, and we have folks that have been working on oriental rugs for years and hand sewing quilts together, and the thought of them having to come in and put their quilt down on somebody's still wet acrylic paint, it's soul crushing, and it will not happen, but that's really the importance of separating these two classes. Also, with the limited space that we have, they're doing art on carpets. They're doing art right now in rooms that aren't designed for what they're intended. They're dragging their supplies in from the north parking lot all the way down into the center and then on the return ride as well home. As you'll see, we did combine originally like a maker's studio into the Dirty Art Studio because we want to offer woodworking classes, planting classes, potting classes, 3D printing, robotics, floral arranging. These are classes that are not just independent of what I want to offer. These are programs that you will see frequently if you open up newsletters from any other center on the South Shore. You will see that they are offering wood turning classes, caning classes, repair classes. Gone is the art of fixing something and making it anew again. We can go on to, I wanted to mention too that you could see there's a max of 24 people in this space, but it's like 18 seats. 24 max. It's going to depend on the type of course you're offering. If it is basically instructional based and you're facing the instructor and you can see what they're trying to teach you, we're going to have more opportunity for people to fit into the room, where this setup right here is designed for that social interaction and the instructor's walking around in between you.
And then also, we're showing in both the clean arts room and the dirty arts room, we've got 2 sinks, so when it's cleanup time, everybody's not going to the same sink. You've got an opportunity to stretch all of that out.
Yep. And, almost a repeat of the slide before, we do offer knitting, quilting, and oriental rug making right now. We should be able to offer a variety of different crocheting classes, teaching people how to use a sewing machine, felting, other MIY classes, Cricut maker classes. This is a great space for people to learn how to play music in. You're facing each other, you have enough room in there and light. And also, let's not forget about the open studio, that if you don't want to come in and you've already, you want to work on your own project on your own time, we have the open studio opportunity as well.
And then we've got outdoor spaces. And again, we felt that in the design of the building and design of the site, outdoor spaces were important in the discussions that we had early on with existing participants and general public. We've created an opportunity for an outdoor greenhouse that would be near the dirty arts room. We've got outdoor planting, which could be vegetable planting, it could be flowers, with raised planters. We've got a number of different patio areas as well, and then a large patio out the back of the cafe. So you can see that number 3 is see-through from number 6, which is the front entrance. And then we've got some lawn areas around the outside of the building as well. So all of those outdoor spaces play into the opportunity for outdoor coming in and indoor going out, and trying to mix those throughout the day. And as you can see, again, the possibility of proposed activities looking around the site.
Outdoor spaces, we have none. So, no, we do run right now an en plein air art class through the summer and outdoor walks, and both of those are destination-based. They don't take place here at the Town Hall complex. There's such an opportunity for integrating programs with the outdoors, not just around the center itself, but around the fields that are there and then into the park proper. I have visions of, building storybook walks where we're working in the woodworking tools together, building the frames, and the artists are painting the pictures with children and placing them out for families to enjoy together. Orienteering, how do you use a compass? I mean, how many kids today can actually pick up a compass and know how to use it? Our folks have institutional knowledge that they can share, and there are so many opportunities here for that to take place. Like, this is the vision, this is the dream right here. And we have to have bocce. I was told I will not vote for it if we don't have bocce. So I'll take this one, Doug.
Yeah, I think you go on from here for a while.
We really wanted to talk about, what essential services does a senior center or center for active living actually offer? What can I access as a resident of the community? These are all, this is a list, albeit there's probably something that was left off, considering how many programs and services we do provide. But every single one of these are opportunities that you can access, even if you can't get into the center. If you have a neighbor, a family member, a friend that's looking for some help, we will come to you, we will bring you to us, we will help you online, over the phone, in person, it doesn't matter. I mentioned the health insurance counseling, health screenings, blood pressure and flu shot clinics, health and safety classes and services, wellness fairs and support groups. All of these categories are services that every center should be able to provide, and we do, but we should be able to do more of it. Outreach services, consultations with older adults, caregivers, and family members, information and referral for everything that you can possibly think about. Safety assurance program, it's a call. Are you okay today? Great, I'll call you again tomorrow. Assistance applying for subsidized programs, fuel, housing, supplemental nutritional assistance program. For those of you that remember the term, that used to be food stamps. Mass health, senior care option plans, Social Security, disability, it goes on and on. We do have brochures and flyers that are available to explain all of this as well. Volunteer opportunities, nutrition services, and transportation services. I mentioned that we will bring you to us If you don't want us to come to you, we provide transportation for local medical appointments, essential shopping, local errands, programs, local day trips, big day trips, elderly education, fuel, and the list goes on and on.
And these, I won't spend time going through these slides. This is just a summary or a consolidation of everything Doug and Jen just talked about. So this is, again, going to be available online after the meeting, and wanted to provide a place for a consolidation of all of the activities that we just talked about. In this slide here, this is a matrix that Jen and her group put together to try to figure out how is this proposed center going to be utilized in terms of hours, how many seminars, how many programs are going to be provided per week, per month. So again, I'm not going to spend time going through each of these bullets. This will be available, and I'm happy to answer any questions about how we came to this. But again, this is just a summary of a lot of time that we put into projecting out, how is this center going to be utilized. So Doug spent a little bit of time talking about each individual space. We wanted to very, very quickly, hopefully, go through the floor plan and just orient everybody as to how the building is laid out and why it's laid out the way it is. So Doug, if you want to start on the east side, we'll zip through this quickly.
Sure, yeah, and just to go through it as quick as possible. But the vestibule is on the front of the building. The parking lot is out in front of the building so that people coming from their cars see the front door. The office suite is located in a position that can view the parking lot, so there are eyes on the parking lot, and the people in the parking lot know that there are eyes because the office is right there. The office is right there as well, so that anybody coming and going, needing contact with the office staff, doesn't have to wander through the building to find it. When you come in the building through a vestibule, you've got a small little lobby lounge area, and the reception desk is right there. The reception desk is in a position that can look into the lounge, down the left-hand corridor, down the right-hand corridor, really has eyes on the entire building as to what's going on. Straight ahead is that cafe that we talked about and out to the patio. As we move down the corridor, we've got the classroom and then the media room on the upper left-hand backside of the building, two large activity areas close to the front door. We've got the conference room and the shared workroom that have access off of the corridor. So those are both activity spaces, and volunteers can come and go from that space without having to walk through the administrative suite. The consultation area and the health wellness room is down the hall. It's a little bit of a private area where we could have some seating back down there as well for people that are queuing up to use those spaces. And then the two arts rooms are positioned looking to the north. Art rooms should have northern daylight, not direct sunlight, so they're positioned in that location. And then we've got restrooms down there, both private restrooms and group restrooms, and then the den and a art lounge area down at that end of the building as well. And we did in talking about the arts, we did talk about there may be activities that might be arts only, and we do have a door down at that end of the building where after hours that could possibly be a single entrance just for art activities. I also mentioned that the greenhouse and the planting area, the raised planters, are outside off of this end of the building near the dirty arts room, so you might have some activities that are going on in the greenhouse, but you may also have some instructional activities having to do with that in the dirty arts room. So there's good synergy with all of that happening there. Also, we go down the other end of the building. The idea of entering the building in the middle allows your travel distances to the left and to the right to be basically the same, rather than a daunting travel distance if you entered the building at one extreme end. So here we've got restrooms immediately adjacent to the large area, the multi-purpose room. When that breaks out, we've got another set of group restrooms and two private restrooms down the hall. The cards room also in this location with some seating outside. And then we've got our fitness activities, the equipped fitness room and the exercise studio down at that end of the building. And then all of your back of house. We've got an entrance that I said was going to be near Meals on Wheels. There's your Meals on Wheels. We've got maintenance and mechanical space, back of house, storage back of house, our kitchen coordinator, and we've got that one that's marked storage is also a laundry room. And then we've got our main kitchen that goes through into the multipurpose room. So very simple plan, very easy cognitive mapping, can't get lost. And as I said, the location of the reception desk has good eyes on the entire building as a point of reference to what's going on within the spaces.
These are some slides that we've shown in the past. We just wanted to sort of re-show them. The numbers have been adjusted for the reduction that Dan was talking about earlier, just to show where we sit with some of the facilities and some of the towns that have recently provided new senior centers or community centers. And this is just a chart showing kind of where we fall. We're in the green here. The red is existing, and the blue are the peer communities that we've identified that, again, have renovated or built new senior centers recently. And very quickly, because we're way over time here, we just wanted to give you guys a vision for how we think this building fits on the site and how it fits within the site that we've identified for the building. So I'll skip through all this. Doug and Jen have talked at length about what the design of the Center for Active Living is going to provide. And just to back up, we did give a lengthy presentation on the exterior and the interior design a few weeks ago. I think it was on the 19th. That presentation is available online, so I encourage you, if you want more information, more detail as to why we did what we did here, to watch that presentation. But these are our focus areas on the overall aesthetics of the design. We want it to fit within the nature of Bear Cove Park, as we are adjacent to the park itself. We wanted to reflect the history of the site and the military use of the site, and we wanted to make sure the building exterior was relating to the functionality of the building, specifically the program. As Doug mentioned earlier, the form follows the function in this case. Just some photos of the park itself, drawing from inspiration from the natural materials. Again, gave a presentation prior on the sustainability aspects of the building that we're proposing, so I encourage you to watch and see those presentations past that have been available online. The historical component of the site, obviously, this is a photo from the 1940s showing all of the old buildings that the military was using when this site was in full tilt military use. So just wanted to show that, you know, this isn't a old growth forest. This is a site that has been previously developed, and we are trying to revitalize it. Our little area in the bottom right there, highlighted in the orange circle, that is our site in relation to the old military site. You can see all the buildings. I believe there was over 90 buildings there originally. Only a few are still standing. Here's a photo of the actual building that is on our site currently. This is about a 10,000 square foot footprint. Here is that same building on our site, more or less. This flat raised area is our proposed site, so you can see how the existing building fits within that. We wanted to show you what a 25,000 square foot building looks like over the top of that volume, just to show scale. So that little rectangle we just dropped in there, that is just a simple box that reflects the programmatic size of the building. And as we're starting to, you know, figure out where does the building land, you know, as you could probably see from what we had previously proposed, the building location is a little bit different. We did that for numerous reasons. Access to utilities, trying to disturb the land as little as possible, locate the building where the old building was. There were numerous reasons for that, but this is what the box looks like over the original building. So thinking about views out to the building or views out to the site, thinking about what are the spaces along the back of the building, we started to look at that part of the building wanted to be a little bit taller to try to gain the benefit of those really spectacular views out towards the exterior. There's some wetlands beyond our properties that have some pretty spectacular views, so a lot of our larger spaces are located in the back, taller ceilings, bigger glass, a lot of daylight, a lot of views out to the exterior. So we decided to lift the back of the building up a little bit taller. The front of the building is going to be a lower part of the structure. That's where all the simple, smaller programmatic spaces are landing. So the idea is the shape of the building on the front is really responding purely to the size of the space needed in that part of the building, and only that, no bigger, no smaller. So there's a lot of undulations and back and forths on the front of the building. We've talked in the past a lot about trying to draw the natural components through our site. So we have been talking about this green corridor that we're driving through the property, and that reflects itself in the building, with the building turning a little bit, nestling into the corner of our site a little bit better, and creating an opportunity to really create a nice, welcoming entry point at the center of the building, but also opening that center part of the building that Doug was mentioning, the cafe lands in, opening that up to the exterior, and again, providing spectacular views out towards the back and bringing in a ton of natural daylight. So this diagram just shows us trying to connect the entry gate at Bear Cove Park to the left with the natural elements that we're going to be, contending with there on the back side of our building. And then an introduction of a separate entrance canopy to protect folks from the elements at the drop-off point or at the point of entry here. So just showing how folks would be circulating the site and how that relates to the front of the building, and how it's perfectly situated for drop-off potential, where somebody's bringing somebody for a ride, you drop off directly at the passenger side. You don't have to circulate the site in any weird orientation. You come right in, drop off, and then you continue off to your site or to the parking site. And again, just on the site plan, trying to make sure that we're connecting the rest of the park through our site to the Bear Cove Park entry, really cementing this as an integral part of the overall use of the natural elements. And this is just a diagram showing how those two pieces come together. We're looking at a lot larger volumes towards the back to reflect the history of the site, the lower volumes in the front to reflect the natural components of the site and the functionality as well. The site plan that we've showed a few times along the way, like I mentioned, we've landed on the building located where the old building is. You can see the red box there. That's where the existing building is currently on the site. Our building laying right over the top of that. We've showed the new drive entry off of the lower east side of the site, and we're trying to provide as much green space in and amongst all of the parking area as possible. So the idea is when you drive in, you pull into a more natural area with lots of trees, lots of greenery. We're trying to avoid the idea of you pull in to a Home Depot parking lot and you see 150 parking spaces, and then you get to the building. The idea is to drive through a natural entry point and happen upon the building before you really get to the parking area. And you'll see that in some of the views that we're going to show here in a second. But this is that entry drive here. So the idea would be to keep it very natural feeling. So when you do pull into the Center for Active Living, it does not feel like you're driving into a massive parking lot again. You're still in the park to feel very natural. You're happening upon the building. The shapes of the building are reflecting, very traditional New England shapes. We have the rear gable. It's going to, the idea is that it would be a, cedar shingles type of siding or something like that, where the front of the building's a little bit lower. Again, more natural materials. We're looking at some stone. The idea would be we're using stone close by. There's the Plymouth Quarries that has, granite coming right out of the ground here in Hingham, or close by that we'd be proposing to use. So the idea is really utilizing and pulling the natural components from the site into the building. So trying to use natural materials, to reflect that. Getting closer to the building here at the drop-off, the idea is the canopy is a natural looking thing, an origami shape to really play up that green corridor coming through the center of the building. You arrive at the entry. There's a lot of stone, a lot of glass, a lot of wood or wood look materials that again are driving the natural materials onto the building and into the building. Just some more views from the front, down the corridor, around the back of the building. The idea that that patio really extends back from the cafe to a really social outdoor area that has some cover, easy access to the building. There's a level change there, so making sure we have provide accessible access to the lawn areas and the green spaces out back. Plenty of opportunities for smaller get-together areas, little areas for socialization in addition to the patio area. Plenty of lawn space for different types of programs that Jen was talking about. The greenery, we're probably showing a little bit more than there's going to be back there. We get a little bit, have a little bit of fun here, but the idea was we're working with DPW to make sure that, you know, whatever greenery we show here is going to be low maintenance, easy to maintain, and is not going to be too much of a pain in the future. A view of the west side of the building here, where there would be a standalone greenhouse, which would be kind of a kit apart. It's a very simple structure that would be adjacent to the art room, with some raised planters and gardening areas that would be separated and accessible from some of the patio spaces out back. Just a material palette showing how we're trying to draw from the natural landscape, stone, local stone, wood or wood-like materials, cedar shakes, very Hingham, very New England, very coastal, you know, trying to, again, be respectful of the context. As you enter into the building, same thing, same idea, trying to bring natural materials, trying to bring that warmth into the building. The idea would be we're exposing some of the wood structure and bringing some of the shapes that we're looking at on the exterior of the building into the building. View from the cafe back towards the entry point, you know, really providing very bright, day-lit spaces, very welcoming, highly social spaces. This is a view down into the art corridor. The art wing will have its own entrance with a little bit of a display area, again, bringing in that natural warmth and the wood into the building as much as possible, providing opportunities for folks to display artwork, potentially sell their artwork, you know, in this display area. Going further down the way, that den area that we talked about could potentially be closed off, could be open, could have a sliding door that could provide flexibility for both. Views to the exterior, very comfy, cozy place that's connected to a space on the exterior that would be covered. Again, if somebody wanted to grab a book, hang out outside a little bit, enjoy the outdoor area. If it's raining, there's still a little bit of cover. If it's too sunny, there's still some shade cover. So again, the connection of the indoor exterior, you can see, is the main theme with all of what we're showing here for the design concept. Yoga suite or our exercise studio here, plenty of daylight, a lot of views to the exterior, warmth, natural materials. That's the idea here. And again, just a quick color palette of kind of what we're thinking now. Haven't landed on any finishes, haven't picked anything yet. This is just an idea of where we feel like things should be going. And that's our presentation. Thank you for bearing with us. Happy to answer any questions, and I'll throw it back to you, Bill.
Great. Well, thank you for that. I know a lot of effort, work went into that, the slide. Jennifer, Chris, Doug, Beth, thank you for the great work there. So what we'll do is we'll comment questions from select board, then we'll go to the building committee, then we'll go to the advisory committee, then we'll go to the general public. So I'll start. I thought you did a really great job with the data and back in describing what's going to happen in each room. So I appreciated getting a feel for why these rooms are being recommended and what's going to go on there. So thank you for that. We didn't get into it really with these slides, but I'd really like the building committee to look at the administrative area and to try to make some reductions there. I think there's some spaces in the administrative part of the building that probably could be continued to be reduced to a certain point. And I think myself and a lot of other people are eagerly awaiting the information regarding costs that are going to come into the month. But
Including the building.
including, yes, it's probably a big part of your analysis too. So thank you for that. And but I liked your use of data and describing why these rooms are in there and what's going to happen there. But continue to try to look at that admin space, see if we can make reductions there. But yeah, appreciate it. So let me turn to Liz, see if you have any comments or questions.
Sure. Well, thank you. That was quite a comprehensive presentation. Appreciate the hours and hours of work that has gone into this already. I appreciate the demographic information. The peer comparisons, I think, are helpful. One thing that you talked about was proposed participant capacity. Is there a specific formula for that, or how is that calculated?
Jen, you want to take that one? The chart, the matrix that you put together?
Yeah, so the proposed participant capacity is based on what we would expect room usage to be. Looking at the programs that we can't currently offer that we should be able to offer. Looking at, what our comparable communities are also offering. We started this exercise well over a year and a half ago. We sat down with Doug and his team and said, what are the programs you can't offer? What types of spaces do the those rank, like, do those programs need to go into? Where are the synergies? Where can we combine things? And it really started to create this story in a matrix. I do have a much more detailed 9-page chart, which wasn't gonna go up in this particular presentation, that I can share out, or we can focus a little bit more on that in another presentation. But we looked at, for example, the large multi-purpose room, because that's the one on the top. What was in that list of programs that was on the slides? How long did those programs take? What's the turnover? I knew I shouldn't have used that. Sorry about that. What's the turnover in between the programs? How long does that take to break down, to set up, to move your participants out of the space? So really, once we went through that exercise with every single program and fit them into the boxes, that's where these stories started to come under. Also, we talked about what's the ideal size. As I mentioned, there's never been a senior center director that said, oh, we should have built that fitness room smaller. Well, that may be true, but if you sit down and you talk to your fitness instructors, are they comfortable teaching a class of 50 people? Or you're talking about bodies in motion? The answer is not always. The ideal room size for a fitness class, it's 24 participants. Anything more than that, they're not getting the detailed attention they deserve. They're not getting the modifications that they need for any injuries that they've experienced. And we went through and we treated every single exercise program and room with that mentality, and that's where we came up with this chart.
Great, thank you. That's helpful. As Bill said, I know we're all awaiting the budget information, and I think it's hard to make any informed decisions at this point without knowing what we're talking about in terms of cost. At one of our previous meetings, we talked about fixed costs and variable costs, and I think we all need a better understanding of that. What is kind of the base cost or that fixed cost, and then what are the things that we want to add on. You talked about transportation needs, and I'm just wondering, anecdotally, I've heard that is an issue in town with seniors needing rides. So and you don't have to answer this right now, but that is something I want to look into, how you're kind of quantifying that and how we're going to be able to meet that need. But I'm assuming it's an additional cost.
So currently, do you want me to?
Sure, yeah.
So currently, we have a part-time transportation coordinator. We have 2 paid part-time medical drivers. They split the schedule throughout the week. And then we have a roster of volunteers that drive the shuttle buses. So they're 14, 10, or 9 passenger vans that our volunteers will take them out to Stop and Shop. We've added Market Basket to the rotation because every cost savings is really impactful for a lot of people. Taking people, to local errands, the library, to town hall. And if you wanted to go visit your friend who's also doesn't drive and lives in Hingham, let us know, we'll take you there. So we do have, usage data on what those numbers look like.
Great.
What I can say is that there's a continued need to get people into Boston, and that's not something that we can accommodate without support from a grant that we've been fortunate enough to receive every year. This year, we did run out of those funds, so that's really something that we should start to try to address as a community moving forward, like that continued growth and how we're going to continue to meet it. But we average right now anywhere from 100 to 150 participants using our services every month. And really what's become popular is asking people calling and saying, you know what, I know you have that big lunch in there this week. I don't want to fight for parking, so can you please come pick me up? And it's really opened up the door for them to see what other services they can access.
Great, thank you. Well, it's beautiful. There's no shortage of programming needs, and I appreciate your enthusiasm and creativity. I look forward to kind of continuing this discussion. I think, budget, optimizing the space for the programming. Traffic concerns has also been raised at previous meetings. Obviously, we don't want to lose sight of that. We talked about doing a traffic study at some point during this process, so I'll kind of waive my time for now, but thank you. Thank you for all the work.
Julie.
Okay, thank you. Well, this is a lot of work that everyone has put in, so thank you to the building committee, to Jennifer, to Chris and Doug and Dan, in the Council on Aging and the focal group. A lot of people have spent a lot of time, and it shows, on working together to put together a plan with the programming. It's beautiful. It looks like a thoughtful design, very intentional, programmatic space. I want all these activities for our seniors. I want them to be in one place where you're building community, you have social interaction. I think that's incredibly important, that we have a senior center that works, that fits people. And I do believe, to a point, if you build it, they will come, that we will have a larger population of people using the senior center than obviously what we have now, because there's not enough room right now. I had a conversation with my own mom today about her needs and what she was up to. She's a widow, and she is not a joiner at all. And I told her what was on the agenda for the select board meeting tonight, and she said, oh, actually, I'm gonna start going to the senior center. Now, this is in a different town on the South Shore, but I couldn't believe it. She said, yeah, I'm gonna start going, and she wanted to have a meal there and join a knitting group that was there. So I believe that you will get engagement from seniors, more seniors, with a new senior center. And we've seen the success of senior centers all over the South Shore. But also, on the other hand, we're gonna have to pay for this, and we're gonna have to get this project passed. So I'd like that the concerns of residents about the cost of the building are heeded, and I know square footage can drive the cost. So I'm just asking for another pass at the plans and finding any way to, I'm not going to use the word reduce, but maximize the multi-purpose nature of some of the rooms. So that's my big comment, but I wanted to just ask two quick questions. One is about staffing. So you mentioned that in the kitchen area, the main kitchen that would prepare the large meals, that they have to be licensed workers. So we don't have that right now where we hire kitchen staff, correct?
We don't have any current kitchen staff.
Okay,
employed.
so we would have to, in this setting, have licensed workers that we would hire for creating those lunches for people.
Right, so currently, the volunteers and staff, and we're down there, if we're preparing anything, we're covered under Social Elder Services certification, ServSafe certified, Choke certified, and allergen. And that's something that would continue to happen because they would still be offering those services out of the new space as well. And, you know, we do utilize a lot of volunteers. I know we still have some more work to do on talking about the operational costs and town policies, also talking about like the different funding sources and how we creatively fund our existing staff right now, because not all are paid through the town budget. So we'd be happy, I think, to open that discussion up further on when we have some more information on the square footage of the space as well.
Okay, great. And then my other question is about the numbers for the seniors in town. And you included Linden Ponds at a population of about 1,400. Is that the current population of Linden Ponds? So I don't doubt that there'll be people from Linden Ponds who will come over and use our Center for Active Living. I think there are plenty of people who lived in Hingham who will move to Linden Ponds but want to still have those connections with others from the town. But what I hear from folks who live at Linden Ponds now is that there are a lot of people who come to live there who come from out of state or different areas of Massachusetts, and they don't have that connection to the town of Hingham. So I'm just wondering about the numbers and what participation you really think that you would have from Linden Ponds residents, because they have so much programming at their own place to live, so.
Yeah, one of the things I want to say about that is I've shared this narrative that when my dad moved there in a crisis with my stepmom, and my daughter was really sad about that, and she came back from Nashville, she wanted to go see him, and she left saying, this is just like a college campus. So when I think about the residents there, they do have amenities, but think about living yourself on a university campus or even in an apartment with a lot of amenities. You still want to get out into the community and broaden your horizons. So that being said, I know there are concerns around the size related to whether or not we are overcompensating for Linden Ponds. So we have, over the last few months, we have taken Linden Ponds out and applied the ratio. Mm-hmm. We've put 10% of participation by Linden Ponds in there, and we're still hovering like within this average. So if we went back to that peer table, the average of the South Shore towns, for example, is 3.6 square feet per resident 60 plus. We were at 3.54, and we've reduced it to 3.28. So we're now like a little lower than some of the towns. The other thing I wanted to point out is this isn't being built tomorrow, so we're getting really close to 2030 when we will be around, we have 4 projections, MAPC, Donahue Institute. We have an average of, say, 9,400 in terms of projections. So actually, this 3.28 is going to hold, because if we take the 9,000, and there isn't really projected growth at Linden Ponds at this point, I did call Linden Ponds. So if you take the 9,000 and less out 1,400, it puts you kind of right back at this. So I think when we look at it that way, that 3.28 is going to hold.
Thank you. That's all I have for now.
Thank you. Tom, I'll turn it over to you. Did your committee have any questions or comments? They've seen it all.
We think that the members.
We'd like the keys now.
Sure.
The members who spoke covered everything we were interested in.
Tom, can you turn on your microphone, Tom?
I would just add a couple of quick points. Money, we're not, I am a taxpayer in the town of Hingham and have been for a long time. I shudder when that thing arrives as much as anybody does. And my parents were before me. So I'm very aware of the burdens on the citizens of Hingham. And this committee has had that in its mind straight through. So I want everyone to understand that this has not been put together as some theoretical, wouldn't this be wonderful? We are a town meeting appointed committee. We don't work for the advisory, the selectmen, or the council on aging. It's a town meeting appointed committee whose obligation under the charge is to go back and report to the town meeting our recommendations with respect to what we think is an appropriate structure to meet and serve the needs of the citizens. And we're well aware that we don't have the power of the purse, and that the town meeting does. And then ultimately, on a capital expense, presumably there will be an override election, and the voters will get to vote. I will say, as you do this kind of work, and the architects are aware of it, but I've had some background in doing buildings, and so I'm particularly aware of it as well. Nothing is ever as simple as if you take 100 square feet off, whoopee, the budget problems are solved. They're always more complex. And there are other factors over and above just the size of the structure that we're looking at this stage that will affect that, like all the mechanicals and everything. So we're aware of money concerns, we share them, we will do everything we can to meet the goal of a decent building at a price that's acceptable to the town. One comment with respect to sizing, and this is, well, let me go back. When I worked on this project and the 5,000 square feet was the envy of everyone in the South Shore, I thought, well, boy, good job, Tom. And listen, we dedicated it in '98. 2012, they're already meeting and complaining about what an inadequate place they had. And it was true. And here we are, not that far away, and we realize it has been totally unsuitable for more than a decade. Marshfield is a town to keep in mind as we go through this. Marshfield was a town that we looked at. I was on the very first study committee that the selectmen created way back. And Marshfield is a warning about how you consider the costs of these sorts of constructions. Their population was similar to Hingham. The number of seniors they had was similar to Hingham. They went through the usual process. They went to the Donahue and the UMass, and they got a study done of the needs of the community, and they built a senior center. And it was about 10,000 square feet. And there were people who said, not sure, but it was, well, this will be good. In less than a decade, they had to go out and build a new 2-story structure to get them up to the 24,000 square feet that they're at, because the first one they built was utterly inadequate. The costs of that, let's go back and put this expensive addition on 5 or 6 years later with inflation, meant that they spent a lot more money the second time around than it would have cost them the first time. And in the meantime, they had a fairly lengthy period when the services they were able to give weren't enough. So I just want everyone in town to be aware of that and recognize that we're not trying to build a Taj Mahal, but we are trying to build a building that will serve the needs of town, of the town citizens, between now and 2035, and hopefully a building that's good enough that maybe it's going to serve the town even longer. The progressions in population in terms of aging from these various studies are just straight up on all us old timers. We're the kids who deliver papers. They're going to have to be out in full-time jobs in order to support our generation. And finally, one last point about elder and the growth of elders and the needs of elders. The elder population, they don't, and we are always now called elders because for some godforsaken reason, they think we would be offended at the word senior. Now, why I shouldn't be as offended at being called an elder as a senior, I will never understand. But the growth of the elder population is so great that in my profession, practicing law, we have specialized practitioners, and that's all they do, elder law. We have bar association groups that are solely for people who are practicing elder law. I'm due to give a talk next week at the Hingham Senior Center on the Elder Law Guide. The Mass Bar Association puts it out. It's free. They get suckers like me who are members to go around and speak to as many people in the Commonwealth as we can to help them out by saying, you know, there are resources. The impact of the needs of elders legally and the complications of what goes on, and the need to have some reliability in the community of knowledge and awareness before all of the bad things happen that many elder lawyers are forced to deal with after the fact, demonstrates, to my mind, conclusively, that as much as police and fire are critical, as much as education is critical, it is impossible in today's communities not to recognize the needs of an adequate ability to serve the senior population as being equally critical and important. So, thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. All right. Carol, go ahead.
Thank you, Bill. Couple of comments first, and then a few questions. One, I want to say thank you for all the work you've done, echoing what you've already heard, but not only since last town meeting where you've made such advancements in these kind of details, but also for all the years that preceded that. I know you've spent a lot of time talking about this and thinking about this, so and it really shows. It's great. Comment is, I would ask if it's possible, Jen, to share that 9-page that you referenced, and also maybe talk about that at a future meeting.
Yes.
The utilization of the rooms is really going to go a long way to inform on the size of the building. And I'm a numbers person, and I know that would help me go a long way in understanding. And when I see the capacity, but I can't quite wrap my head around the number of programs that fill those hours. And so I'm sure going over that in a little more detail would certainly be helpful.
Absolutely. If we have a couple of hours just dedicated to this 9-page document, I'd be happy to.
That's great. A couple of hours leads me to just comment on your comments there, Tom, that I spent 42 years in a career of law and finance, and I would have traveled long distances to have had help figuring out Medicaid. So, when Medicare, when I got there, I was just, it beat me down. On the question side, I have a kind of a two-part question that's on the demographic data. Were the other towns, I mean, I know this is a dramatic difference in the number of programs that you're going to be able to offer. So were other towns really helpful in both helping you envision the age groups that will actually participate? Like how many really do in their 60s? Does it pick up a lot in their 70s? A lot in the 80s, trail off in the 90s. I don't, however that plays out, I'm curious if other towns were helpful. And with that same information, helpful on the demands, the demand for the various programs that, that you're looking forward to offering. So, are men discussion groups, once a month and 10 people, or, just so some color on, were you able to get that kind of assistance from other towns? Or where you got that from?
So I anticipated a question similar to this, and quickly today I went through and I pulled some information from the Executive Office of Aging and Independence, formerly the Executive Office of Elder Affairs. After having done this for 15 years, it's really hard for me to change the acronym that quickly. But what I can tell you is that, across the board for some of the communities that we looked at, in particular Marshfield, 41% of their active members are between the ages of 60 and 74. Their total participation is right around 3,200 individuals a year. That number seems to trend across the percentage-wise. So Duxbury, 2,430 annual participants, 36% are between the ages of 60 and 74. Newton, 45%. Plymouth, 46%, and here in Hingham, we're at 31% of participants are between the ages of 60 and 74 right now. And just this past fiscal year, we had 1,226 individuals come into our tiny little 5,000 square foot center. In regards to the programming question, that's a really complicated question to answer because each community is very different. What the interests of, the members of your community are very different. Education levels, access to outdoor amenities and nature. So a lot of the programming that I've seen over the years do vary from town to town, but there's always your consistency. It's always fitness, education, and anything to do with food. Usually that involves entertainment of some sort. But I can tell you here in Hingham, it's now going 6.5 years. It's different than my previous community. And what I really learned is that older adults in Hingham love education. They love education about local history, anything that's accessible, within, a 10-mile radius of where you can throw a stone. We have a whole committee dedicated to creating and implementing lifelong learning programs. It's a 10-seat committee. So it's always going to be education-based, but fitness is also a number one. I'm sure Vicki could speak to that as being part of the Rec Commission for so long. So we continue to follow the trends. We're also a nationally accredited senior center and have been for so many years. And that means that we perform within the top 2% of all senior centers across the country. There's just a little over 100 out of the 350 centers in Massachusetts that are accredited. So we follow the trends, we pay attention, we see what other communities are doing. And generally, I can be completely honest with you, if we try to implement a program and we don't get the numbers, it disappears. It goes away, because our goal is to meet the needs and interests of our seniors in this town.
Thank you, that's great. And one last question is actually for Dan. You mentioned the bid date being available before town meeting. So AdCom generally has to wrap up our work. You've already known all about this, so. Of course. When are we, how, you know, for us to sort of finish on a timely basis, are we gonna be able to have that bid quote sometime in late March or
Not in late
March
March.
20th?
I don't think that we'll have, I think March 20th is going to do Hingham a disservice because we won't have documents that are bulletproof, and that's more important to me than a date. I appreciate, I'm chairman of my finance committee, I appreciate what you're trying to accomplish. We will have had 3 estimates, and we probably will have the file sub-bids in, so we'll know at that point in time whether we're tracking above or below that estimate to give you the comfort level to have that block set aside.
Okay.
Is that fair?
It's a good answer, it's an answer. I appreciate the answer. We'll figure it out. Okay, thank you. I think what I'm going to ask is, I'm going to turn it to our liaisons that are in the room, and then come back to Ted and just work our way down the table for questions. That makes sense. Brenda, you want to start us?
Thank you very much for all of the effort that went into a good, comprehensive presentation, and obviously all the work that went into being able to present this. There are some questions that the AdCom members posed to you, some of which were answered, I believe, some of which I feel have not yet been, so I kind of want to call those out. When you said, Jen, that 30% of our current participants are between 60 and 74, can you flesh out where the other 70% are in their age groups?
So yes, sorry. There we go. 45% of our users are age 75 to 84. And then over that 85 plus is a little bit skewed, because if you call up the center and you want to come in for a service and you don't give us all of your data, you are automatically entered in as 120 years old. So it does skew it a little bit. So I wouldn't count on that 85 plus data. There's no way for us to go in and fix it without violating your privacy. But those are the numbers that we have.
Okay. And as you are thinking about, in this case specifically Hingham, who is coming to your current programming? Who are you hoping you will eventually attract? Sort of what cohort are you most interested in getting through your doors?
It's continuing to provide the services that we have based on what people's needs are. So right now, we have members that come in that are under the age of 55, and we have people that still participate in the center that will be 109, I believe, 108 this year. So it really is, to define the program is to define the needs. Looking at the UMass needs assessment that we worked on in 2022, continuing to ask the questions, seeing where the numbers are proving themselves. So it's not really about the who, it's everybody, but we want to provide the services they're going to be interested in. As I mentioned again, fitness, we're always exploring new fitness programs, what's going on in other communities, where are they showing the numbers. We're in constant contact with all the other directors in the area. We're a member of the Massachusetts Association for Councils on Aging, which is an advocacy group, and we meet monthly as the whole group. We meet monthly also with just the local directors. We also participate in group meetings with South Shore Elder Services, which is our local aging service access provider. And they oversee, 13 communities around. So we're always leaning on each other and talking about the numbers, the data, the trends, and what's working.
I assume population-wise that the largest number of potential members of a cohort are the people in the 6 to 74 range. So if you're going to staff or fill this new space using activities with a lot of people there, you're going to need to bring a lot of those folks in. What do you know about what the 60 to 74-year-olds here in Hingham are looking for?
Really, there's a lot of interest, as I keep going back to fitness. There's this sudden resurgence for folks when they're starting to retire or thinking about retiring. And we have the great opportunity to work with a lot of people at our center right now that have retired early. That's wonderful. And they come in looking for volunteer opportunities. That's where we do grab a lot of folks. As I mentioned, we have people that are helping us with, digital marketing, using Canva, sending out electronic communication. So volunteer opportunities, fitness classes, and they love to take the time to learn about local history and education.
So I think one of the hopes that we had is that you'd have some form of utilization statistic for us to sort of compare how, again, number of hours per month doesn't tell us a whole lot in terms of how much is that room going to be used. I happen to unfortunately not know how many hours a week the Center for Active Living is currently open. Can you tell me that?
So we're currently open. We follow town hall hours, so we're open Monday, Wednesday, Thursday from 7:30 to 5:30, and Tuesdays 7:30 to 7 p.m.
So a total of 30 hours a week? Is that-
50.
40.
40, oh, okay.
Between the early start and the late end, it's closer to 40.
Okay, so 40 hours a week. So 180 hours a month. So the dirty art room that's going to be used, if I saw the statistic, 18 hours, that's a lot of hours that it isn't in use, right?
No, I don't think it was 18 hours. I don't know if the slide's still available.
A minimum of like 140 maybe?
So the dirty arts is 152, and the clean arts is 128. And we have open studio hours, yep.
All right, 18 was the current, got it. Okay, so that's how you would see using it. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, and then the program guide that Carol had mentioned, we can go over in greater detail, because it is such a detailed document. It would have taken an extreme amount of time tonight to go through that slide by slide.
All right, I think those numbers are ones that people will be interested in, so thank you. And obviously concerned about the number of square feet that are going into the administrative spaces. Can you tell us what percentage of the floor plan is administrative, quote unquote, those office spaces, and how does that compare to other towns, senior centers?
So, yep, I don't have that exact percentage right now, but I could certainly figure that out pretty quickly and share that with the group.
Okay, that would be helpful. Okay. All right, I'm going to pass it over to John at this point.
Thank you. Again, thanks for all the hard work you guys have done. It's been pretty amazing to see. And I do want to sort of get back to the utilization issue. Some of the slides I really like to see, it showed, 8 hours per day, but some just had monthly. And I don't know why that is. If those monthlies could be broken down to daily, it'd be much easier to figure out. So I don't know, can you go to the media room? All right, so there's 166 program hours monthly. So what would that be per day? 8-ish. 8-ish? So basically, that room is going to be used from open to close?
Yes, open to close. And as I mentioned a couple of times throughout the presentation, throughout the slides, some of the spaces will be, so lifelong learning will take place in this room, but also there's opportunity for it to take place in the classroom. So there's a differentiation between lifelong learning and Bridgewater Senior University. Lifelong learning is dedicated to the folks that help put the programs together. I mentioned our roster of volunteers. And then Bridgewater Senior University is obviously a more formalized program where you pay $90 for one semester. You can take as many classes as you'd like anywhere. So, we go back to looking at Marshfield, but also Duxbury, and the other communities in the South Shore, Scituate, Cohasset, all have partnerships with Bridgewater Senior University, and they're offering 6, 7, 8 courses a week each semester so that folks can choose what they're looking for. So I don't know what courses they will have when we open. Hopefully that partnership will continue. I do expect we'll have more program opportunities as time continues to go on and we figure out really what the spaces are. But I do expect the rooms to be quite utilized.
Okay. for those who've been to these meetings in the past, I've referenced this room a few times. I do think the taxpayers should know that no peer community has this. And so it seems to me some of the programming could be done in the multipurpose room, could be done in the classroom, as you've just explained. So I don't know how, that impacts the overall programming, but it looks like a big ask to me.
I think, to answer your question, yes, some of the programs could and will also take place in the classroom, but it's also going to be based on the size of the participation, as well as the length of the program. So we talked about the type of furniture that's going to be utilized in this space versus another. Sitting in a chair for long periods of time when you're taking a 2-hour course versus sitting in a chair with a mobile table for a 1-hour lecture. It sounds very similar, but it's a little bit different for a lot of our folks that have difficulty with getting up and moving around, especially after sitting for long periods of time. And also to the point that, is this exact room somewhere else? No, not this exact room. Marshfield does have a 24-seat space that they do utilize, again, for TV shows, I almost said, documentaries, movies, TED Talks, lectures, some of their lifelong learning. She wishes it was bigger. Duxbury has 2 educational classrooms that are always full, and she wishes that it was bigger. And we actually had a conversation with her. She said, I would love to expand or have expanded even more, but there's a cemetery right next to them, so they couldn't disturb the patrons of that place. So that's what we're seeing, is that the trends are saying education and more. And right now, I think Chris, you might have mentioned the perspective of our current largest space. We can hold 50 folks in that room, and you can't see the screens because of the way that the room is designed. If somebody's using technology to teach, you can't see it even at that distance. But we are always looking to add to the discovery and lifelong learning programs. There are wait lists. We cap off our programs at 50 because it's not going to be beneficial to folks. So I understand the question around it. So yes, there is no exact space just like this. If you had asked the other directors in retrospect, they would have done the exact same thing.
And if I can just add for Marshfield, because I spoke with Carol about this, and she wishes that her media room was larger. But in place of that, they're multi-purpose, as you suggested. Oh, could some of it get absorbed there? She's really juggling stuff in there, so trying to conduct the free or low-cost congregate lunches, and then she's having staff have to come in and push tables to the side for fitness. I mean, it's become overly multi-purpose, so it's really chaotic. And a lot of centers want to have designated spaces as much as they can, just to prevent injuries or just staff needs related to all that moving of furniture. And so some of the features, like an author series, or she's working with a small theater production company, it's in the multi-purpose, and sometimes it's only half the space. So I think that, Jennifer has already large capacity for those lifelong learning programs. And then just adding some of the musical events and, the performance events, and doing that through partnerships in Hingham, maybe working with the conservatory and author series with the library, that kind of thing would be used, and would take place in that space.
Also, I do some of this stuff. I do talks at various senior centers, and I can confirm that this sort of a room, a place where you can hear a lecture or the like, is as prominent as the bridge tables. I think it's one of the most popular offerings and appreciated by the most people. Also, I don't think we should necessarily confine ourselves to just looking at what Scituate or Marshfield might have. I believe, Doug, that you've had experience putting rooms like this in other senior centers, have you not?
Yes, yeah, and one in particular that we reached out to the director is in Westlake, Ohio. That center's now been open for nearly 5 years. And their room is 140 fixed seats. It is by far the most popular room in the senior center. As Jen has expressed, it's used every day, and it is it's just a great space, and they do movies, they do theatrical performances, they do musical performances, they do lectures, and as Jen said, those are experiences where people are sitting for a long period of time. And as I mentioned with regard to the efficiency of this space and getting 60 people to 80 people seated in a room this size with tablet arms and better acoustics and so on and so on, it's just a very, very popular space. And I think that we've seen more and more, as Tom has said, more and more types of activities that this room meets those needs better than just having an open space with tables and chairs.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to turn it over to the other members.
Ted Salikas, Advisory Committee. Thank you for the presentation. It's excellent. And the passion for serving our seniors definitely comes through when you speak, so we appreciate that. My question is probably more for Chris and Dan. The question I had submitted earlier can't be answered because I guess we're not going to get the numbers till the end of September or maybe early October. But what I was curious about, so come that time frame, the proposed, call it 26,000 rounding up square foot facility, what is the cost of that versus a smaller facility, and what's the delta between the two? And building a building is expensive, right? So does it really cost that much more to build another 6,000 square foot versus a 20,000 square foot facility? Those are the numbers I'm really curious to dig into, or vice versa. Does it cost a lot more for that extra 6,000 square foot, and then that's an issue?
So there's not a direct correlation with reduction in cost, because you have to have a mechanical system. You have to have an electrical system.
Exactly.
You have to have a plumbing system. These are things that you're going to have whether the building's 15,000 square feet or 25,000 square feet. So you can't just lop off 1,000 square feet and expect that percentage of the project cost to go away. It doesn't work that way. With regard to actual numbers, when we do have the actual numbers and the advisory board comes back and says, we're really happy, it came in exactly where we wanted it to be, you don't have to do any more. If you don't, and we have a discussion on how do we get to a certain target that the advisory board's looking for, or the Board of Selectmen, or the building committee, or the taxpayers, we'll take a look at that from a global standpoint of how we value engineer that out without sacrificing program. We want to do as much as we can without sacrificing program before we have to start taking space off the building.
Of course. And one quick follow-up question that came up just as part of the presentation. Did I hear correctly that about 200 people is 50% occupied? Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, if you add up all of the maximum occupancies for all of the true programmatic spaces.
All right, so if 200 people is about 50% of the occupation of the building, and there's, even though you up the parking spaces to 161, is the building only going to be 50% occupied most of the time, or is it going to be max occupied and then we're short parking spaces? And if the senior population is going to be increasing over time, are we shortchanging ourselves over the next 5 and 10 years where we're going to have that many more seniors and very limited parking for the size of the building?
So this is my 10th senior center. I've done 9 in Massachusetts. When he's talking about the occupancy, he's talking about a snapshot in time during that 8-hour day.
Okay.
Seniors don't come
So
at
it's
8 a.m.
rotating
and stay till 5. That 200 is going to rotate. The number of residents that are going to use that facility are going to be far greater than 200 a day, or 300 a day, or 400 a day. The cars are going to be coming and going all day.
All right, but you do kind of expect that that will be sufficient 10 years from now, when the senior population will be that much more?
Cars will be smaller.
Yeah, right?
We're going to teach them how to exercise, and they're going to walk.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, well, that was a good answer. Thank you.
Yes, slightly different take on the question or task I have is more, I think, for the advisory committee. And it's because I don't have, I mean, there's sort of, since we started this, there's kind of been this, boy, this feels big. I don't know whether we're trying to get over the emotional distress of why aren't we renovating here for $5 million or something. I'm over that. But we haven't settled on, well, we sort of keep saying this feels big or this is comparatively big to that without knowing, well, kind of what is our, but we're not, as opposed to what's the project budget, what's our budget? If we were renovating our house, we'd say, well, geez, we need to do the kitchen and the other wing and, maybe 200 grand. If we get away with 160, that'd be great, but and maybe we can sneak out 240. That's how we'd approach. We haven't, I don't know that we've done that exercise yet. Maybe we haven't, I missed it. That's certainly possible. But maybe there's a role for us to play there of saying, here's a target number, and if we really stretch, maybe we should spend 40 million on it. I don't know, obviously not.
I like it.
But yeah, right. Maybe that's the number. Maybe that's what we have, but I doubt it because we've got dredging and our development and who knows, other schools or whatever it is. There's some exercise that we could probably do to tighten up some sense of, well, what is a realistic range?
We haven't done that yet. That's going to be my fair answer. I think I understand your point. I don't know, you're getting into a chicken and the egg. Do you decide the dollar or do you decide what the programming is first and how that informs the size and informs the cost? I do think we have to have those conversations. It's probably going to be good to have them when we actually have numbers because we are going to head there and have them soon.
I think if we, I guess I disagree a little bit, at least it may be somewhat of an exercise to get a ballpark before, but maybe that's positive of not getting numbers.
May I?
Again, you go into the home.
So may I answer that, Mr. Chairman? Sure. So the estimating exercise is a really, really key component to the whole public procurement process. You were presented with 50,000-foot numbers at your annual town meeting last year, when the presentation went for that town meeting. I wasn't here during that time, but you were presented numbers for that. With this exercise, it's our first true quantitative measure of all the systems and the building types, the structure types, by two independent estimators that we will take a day to reconcile the two estimates to make sure that the numbers are accurate, and we can sit down with you and say, okay, the program that everyone has been working on for 62 meetings has determined that the building is going to cost X. And that's where we start.
And my comment isn't even about your estimation process. It's about ours. It's about our own budget. Have we done any, including me? I'm on the committee. I've been on the committee for 5 years. I haven't done it. It's more a sense of what can we, what's a realistic thing for the town to afford, which is there's some discretionary there in terms of what will people support in terms of a town meeting tax increase vote. But, in terms of looking at whether it's debt capacity or taxing capacity, or which I know we have room in debt capacity. But anyway, there's probably some exercise that we could do to say, if you guys come back to us in September and say $20 million, do we say phew or great or no way, we got to sell the town? That's all. Is that there's an exercise for us.
Yeah.
Because that was my analogy, because you'd sell the house if you couldn't do the project.
I understand where you're coming from, Alan. We couldn't get there. I mean, it's just, as Dan has described, in this racket, so to speak, in public construction and trying to design a building, you can't just arbitrarily say, well, this is the number. Because there's a huge group of citizens in the town who are concerned about what we're going to have for them. I mean, we didn't, having served on advisory, I understand how painful it is, and you're always worried about the total budget and all of that. but I've never seen a capital project of any significance for a significant public building where it was at all possible to say before you even started the process, here's the number, no more. On your example of the work at the house, you know, if you say the number's X, and then 3 weeks later you say, sorry, Ma, the room for you didn't come within, and so go somewhere else, you'll probably get a disagreement about what the renovation should actually be. I think we're on a sound track in terms of money considerations, and if we stay on it, we'll be where we ought to be when we, as we move forward. I have distinct memories, if not nightmares, about this project, which I was deeply involved in, and getting a budget and having to have a select board look and go, oh, and an advisory committee go, oh, and then getting it through, putting it out to bid and finding out we needed another $250,000. And we're racing back to town meeting to do that. The process here, if the estimating process is in a ballpark that is just absolutely unattainable, I'm sure the selectmen and the advisory committee will realize it and speak up. But what I like about what Dan has described and the way we're trying to go forward is we are going to have rough numbers long enough in advance that we could do some reworking if it looks like it's really going to be necessary. But most important, that we're going to have a final actual bid in hand so that when we're on the floor, we know what number we're talking about. And I think that's the critical stage at which to be able to know it.
Okay. I'm Brian Stack. I want to say thank you for a very terrific presentation, very detailed, and it looks like a great building, whether it comes out here or there. I want to focus on a couple of things. We're not going to get answers to these things tonight, but I do have concerns about the ultimate utilization. And I begin with the assumption that we're going to have either a 4 or 5-fold increase in the available space in our future senior center. And I think I've not heard a single individual who quarrels with the need for a very considerable increase. But in terms of speaking to the future utilization, I do look, let me begin by saying I'm a little confused by the disparity in terms of some of the numbers on basic issues like our current population. You would think that it would be a clear-cut number, but I hear everything from 7,000 to 7,700 to 7,500, and there's equally as significant a disparity in terms of the projections for 5 and 10 years out. But I do observe that using 7,500 and thinking about it as that maybe being the starting point, and I think that's what's on the town website, more or less. I know, as Julie pointed out, there are 1,400 folks at Linden Ponds, many of whom go there specifically because of the programming that is in place. And as Julie also pointed out, many of those folks are actually not longtime Hinghamites. Secondarily, there are about 500 folks in assisted living around town. And Linden has about 100 of them. There's Allerton House, and there have been several of them built in the last few years. But between Linden Ponds and the other facilities that have been built, you're upwards of 2,000. which is about 23%, I think, of the current 7,500 60-plus population that exists in town. So again, trying to get back at some point in the future, I'm sure we'll talk about this in greater detail, what the utilization really is likely to be. Because I saw an interesting statistic today. The baby boom actually peaked in 1957 in terms of the birth rate. We're going to be working on the fiscal 27 budget a year from today. So if we conform to the curve that took place after World War II, peaked in 1957, we should right now be seeing pretty much peak times, setting aside shifts from one town to another. And so I think that's something actually to think about, because some of the 10-year projections I see out there, they're actually projecting an acceleration in the 60-plus growth rate between now and 2035. And I think the point I just made raises some questions about that. The other point is, if we have 2,000 folks, or 500 folks, let's say, at assisted living, and to that I'd add the homebound, and we talked about Meals on Wheels and some of the programs that might be domiciled within the footprint of this building, but don't actually depend on utilization of the media room and whatnot, but are still very worthwhile. And you've got a growing number of homebound people or people that are in assisted living, and that's a different set of services. They're not likely to come, regrettably, to the senior center. And in terms of the cost of doing business for the town in the budget and the servicing seniors, the point is that there's something in excess of 20% currently of the population that really is not fit or able to come to our new building, beautiful though it might be. So I think that's something to think about. I'd like to work in the coming months on what the likely utilization will be, and to get it right, and to reserve the point being that we need to reserve some funding, or whatever you want to call it, for that 20% of folks that are in assisted living or homebound, need Meals on Wheels, need people to come to them because they can't come here. So I'll look forward to having some of those questions answered during the months ahead. Thanks.
Jerry Seelan, and I'll reiterate, thank you all for all the work you've done. I know it's heavy lifting. A lot of my questions have already been asked, but I'd like to follow up a little bit on more people number questions. When the committee first started their deliberations, most of the references to the target user groups were 65 plus, and at some point it changed to 60 plus. And I have two questions. One is, what caused the change to go down a 5-year notch? And second of all, of your current user group, what proportion is in the 60 to 65-year range? And I only ask this because so much of your projected usage is really driven by the people count. I think some of the questions that my colleagues have asked about people in institutional settings, they address that, but anyway, I'd like to know that, if you could give us that answer. Second, and this is a kind of a small issue, but relates to some degree to the cost of running the facility. I know that we've talked in the past and a little bit tonight about staffing and the effect of increased staffing on the budget. And one thing, it's kind of a small thing, but I noticed in one of the presentations, the estimate for custodial services for this nice big new building that's going to be running many, many hours a week is 15 hours a week. Seems kind of small to me if you're going to have hundreds and hundreds of people cycling in and out of this building all day, probably every day of the week. To only have 15 hours a week of custodial services seems a little bit underdone. And on top of that, in the document that I saw, it estimated $20,000 a year for those custodial services. And I think that runs to about 780 hours per year. It seems very low on an hourly basis. And I would just ask that you both revisit the amount of time that you're anticipating for the custodial services, and also when you start to get into telling us what the staffing costs overall are, please include the associated employee benefits costs and any other costs that are not direct salary related, but that we as a town always have to pay. And that's it for me. Thank you.
Well, on behalf of the building committee, I want to assure you that we don't know the answer to any of your questions about costs of operation going forward. It's not our job. I do appreciate that the town and the advisory committee is going to want to have some idea of what the costs of operation are. Costs of operation for this project, in my mind, aren't going to be of any sort of a level that would convert them into becoming something that needed to be included in the project budget. I think everyone needs to know, and I'm not sure whether the town is going to expand the programs that it gives, or what's going to happen in terms of townspeople down the road. One thing about the concern is that realistically, a huge amount of the percentage of what goes on at the senior center is not stuff that's town employee paid. And so that'll have an impact. But on the other, I'm sure that the town administrator and the Board of Selectmen will present what they expect to be ongoing operating costs. We're trying to design a building which, while sustainable, is going to be one that can be operated at reasonable prices, but employee staff isn't sort of part of what we are dealing with in the project itself. As to the 65 versus 60, I don't have any recollection of having been talking about 65, but my understanding is that state law defines the seniors and regulates all of this stuff, and I think 60 is the number, but Beth can answer that.
Yeah, you will see, Jerry, you're correct, that you see sometimes references to 65, like when I showed the data on Alzheimer's, chronic disease, those were calculated on 65 plus. Some of the projections, it depends on the source, but sometimes it's 65 plus in terms of what we feed into some of the data. But to Tom's point, the 60, the number of residents age 60 and over is how the funding stream is calculated. And that's based on the Older American Act.
Thank you, and I appreciate that. Just following up on the general issue of operating costs, I get that you guys are focused primarily on building design, programming, and thinking about delivery of services, but in terms of considering the total cost of any project, size of building has a pretty direct relationship to people costs to run it, and whether that's people who are working to administer all the nice new programs or people, washing the floors after everybody goes home for the night. Size matters. And so whether it's the building committee or Tom Mayo, we would, as the advisory committee, certainly hope to get decent estimates of what those costs would be for a facility of this size going forward.
I'll just say generally, I am working on that with Jennifer. We've been doing it for a couple of weeks. And I'm just not ready to prepared to present it tonight. It'll be coming at a future meeting, but just high-level stuff, two things. One is the only commitment that I can make to, right now, sitting here, to additional operational costs to the center with being a new center from where it is now is a full-time. I don't know where the 15 hours a week came from, if that was an earlier estimate during the feasibility stage maybe, but it will be a full-time FTE, one full FTE for custodial work, for sure. It has to be. Now, that said, we did get away with 15 hours over at the police station, but that's because the public isn't in there. Well, not a large percentage of the public anyway. That's willingly in there. That's right, that's right.
Willingly.
And then the last thing I'd say is when you do get my model on operational costs for the new center, you'll note that you'll see then that it's dynamic for sure, and there's probably upwards of 4 to 5 revenue sources that will cover this type of effort, the type of support that the center's going to need. So be aware now that this is not going to hit the tax base to the extent that every class being held has to be paid for with a tax-based funded position.
Hi, Elaine Cusker, and I live at Linden Ponds, so I may be the only one here. I have some, I'm sorry if I echo things that were already said, but I noticed as we looked at the function of various rooms, it immediately came to mind, well, don't you need a person to manage that? And I came up with several, and maybe, Jennifer, you can clarify this, or it doesn't have to be tonight, but, again, part of the operation is, who's going to do this? The first one I'll mention is one I'm intimately familiar with because we see this all the time at Linden Ponds. When you have rooms that are multifunctional, it goes from cards to a group listening to a book talk or something like that, you need someone to move those chairs and tables around. And we have people at Linden Ponds with these big carts, many people, and that's what they're doing all day long. So that is a big concern. I saw that storage, and that was the first thing that came to mind, which is there's a lot of coming and going. One maintenance staff is not going to do it. I can assure you. So I'm just throwing that out there, but that's a really big concern. When I looked at the design, in addition, you did mention the kitchen coordinator. I saw the fitness room, and it's beautiful. I think the whole place is beautiful. I actually lived in another community that had a vast senior center, and this really measures up. So that's lovely if we can do it. But are you really going to have a fitness room where people will just go in and use equipment without some kind of oversight? I'm not talking about a trainer, but just someone who ensures that people know how to use the machines and are watching that everybody's safe, again, from my experience. When I looked at the outdoor spaces, they're beautiful, but they're very high maintenance from my eye. And, that may be a good thing if we really want them. But just a small thing that came to mind, the parking has these wonderful sidewalks, so people don't have to walk in amongst the cars, which is, if you've been to derby shops, it's worth your life to get from your car to the store, because there is nothing like that. But with that is a lot of maintenance. So there's sidewalks, there's, all those paths in between the walking and so forth. Not only that, for any population, but certainly this population, in the winter, that has to be shoveled and salted and continuously monitored. Otherwise, it's a terrible hazard. And so I wondered how closely the DPW has been consulted in these various designs, because I assume, unlike here, somebody comes through and does all the plowing and shoveling for the entire place. There needs to be, this would be serviced by, our DPW. And is this, this is a lot of maintenance. This is a lot of fine tuning to keep that fit. And So I'm wondering, just in the layout and the materials used, if there's been consultation, with our people, in Hingham, to do this. So I guess those are my concerns. I think it's a beautiful center. I have the same questions other people do about the level of the population and utilization, because that is the argument for the size. Ultimately, that is the argument for the size. So we have to get that right.
Would you like me to try to answer some of those?
Yeah, DPW question, maybe take that.
Yep. So the plantings, I think when Chris was making his presentation, he noted that that was a design, like he said, he was having a little bit of fun with what that design was going to look like. He has heard me say, and it's the reason I think he said it tonight several times, that maintenance-free is great. That's the goal. Low maintenance is acceptable at certain levels. I don't want people out there cutting bonsai trees in the backyard for 24 hours a day. So Chris knows that. That design will be significantly reduced, as it was, by the way, at the public safety facility. The original design that the architect came up with over there was, as Jonas, was significantly different than what was built in the landscaping plan, because we didn't want to have to maintain it. So you're 100% right. That is one of the main points that I keep making whenever the landscaping is discussed. I'd also note that, just so you're aware, this facility is all shoveled by our maintenance staff, our custodial staff. This full-time custodian that I'm anticipating for this facility would become part of the team that works out of this building. It would become one of 5 custodians for this building, public safety, and the senior center. Now, that person would be dedicated to the senior center. But to the extent that there are storms that need help with shoveling, that team of 5 will work together on those 3 facilities. So that's how that will get done. As far as plowing, you're right, the parking lot will be added to the DPW list, but I've spoken with the DPW superintendent, and it's not so onerous. Of the other things I dump on her list every day, it's nothing so onerous that she was overly concerned about it.
And if I could add to that too, the design team has had conversations with DPW. We met with Ashley. We've gone over some of the design details. They've had great feedback on some of the detailing between the sidewalks, wheel stops, where bollards are, where we could push snow, how they would work, shoveling detail with the maintenance versus sidewalk plowing. They do have sidewalk plows. So there has been conversation. There's going to be an ongoing conversation with DPW just to try to limit the amount of headache maintenance that the site will inevitably provide, because as Tom said, there is going to be more work there, but we are actively working with them to try to limit the maintenance as much as possible.
Thank you. Hi, good evening, everybody. Dave Leapart. Just in an effort to mention something that hasn't been brought up in this meeting, although we've touched on it before, I certainly echo all the concerns of my colleagues in terms of, additional staffing, right-sizing the building, things of that nature. Personally, I'll be looking at this project in terms of, as much as possible, trying to assess known unknowns. And I think that one of them that we have to keep in mind, and we've talked about this a little bit before, is I think in terms of people coming and going from the center, especially when you, with the additional building of the pickleball courts down in that area, I think we have to keep in mind that intersection at Fort Hill Street is going to be completely unworkable. And I know Tom knows this, he's nodding. Those are things we have to keep in mind. The knock-on effects of having a fantastic center, are things we're going to have to be looking at, especially, an intersection like that where turning left, I know you're not going to have 180 cars, the capacity coming out of it all at once, but obviously, there's some proportion of that that's going to be coming out, turning left in front of the train station. There's another light crossing the railroad tracks. It's going to be a nightmare.
what we know now, I'm sorry, Bill, can I answer that?
Go ahead, yeah.
I've spoken with engineering. What we know now is the existing design won't work. I think that's probably obvious to everybody, but we are working actively on design ideas. We've got to get into the concept of traffic counts and expectations and the like. But engineering will be doing that over the couple of year interim between now and opening.
Ben Burnham, I think this is directed to Tom. I met with Carol Hamilton in Marshfield. She gave me an hour of her time, which was terrific. And she said she gets 20 different communities coming to that facility. So, I mean, outside of the Hingham residents, I think we're probably going to get a large number of Weymouth residents, right? I don't think they have a really a great facility, is my understanding. So when you're working, you were talking about revenue options, in the operating budget. Would some of these other communities be paying for coming to our Center for Active Living?
So I got to turn that over to Jennifer. My recommendation would be $5 for Hingham residents and $7,500 for every resident. Jennifer, go ahead.
Okay, no, it's a very fair question to ask. You know, and I appreciate, just want to say thank you for your time and going down and, you know, seeing the space with Carol and Marshfield. And yeah, so every center, as I mentioned, this is not my first center that I've worked at. It's year 15, you know, my second community. Every center that has something to offer, you know, it's attractive to certain groups of people. So when I spoke to Carol, I'm pretty sure the number's right around 200 of her active members are residents of the town of Hingham. You know, and I saw that in my last community. We had a very robust bingo group, and they would tour the South Shore, and every day they'd go to a different center. I would expect that same attraction would continue, especially right away when we have a new center. But we talked about, you know, what our participation rates and our policy, that's the word I was looking for, in regards to attendances. You know, our priority is Hingham residents age 60 plus, you know, and then it's open to other Hingham residents. And then we would be open to residents of other communities over the age of 60 as space and registration allows. That's still the same policy that we have now. So when we're running a special event, we leave it open for Hingham residents, and then we open up registration for non-residents. So we do have folks that come in from Hull, from Situate, from Cohasset, from Weymouth. Sometimes it's to hang out with their friends that they grew up with, and sometimes it's because they appreciate the program that we're running. What are the registration opportunities moving forward? Is to be determined. We don't charge a membership fee right now to participate at the center. It is free. We do charge registration fees for programs. Some of the models in other communities are, if you are a Hingham resident, you pay $5 for this fitness class. If you are not a Hingham resident, you pay $7, $8, $9. And that's echoed across the various programs depending on what the cost to run it is. So it would be a wonderful problem to have and an option for a revenue generating source in the future. The other part is we could look at charging monthly memberships for you know, fitness classes or, you know, participation sheets. There's a variety of opportunities out there, and I'd be happy to discuss them more in detail once we understand, you know, what the operational cost of the building is going to look like. And I did want to mention, and this is going back to your question, Elaine, about the staffing piece. I think it falls in line with what your question is too. A lot of our programs are staffed by volunteers, you know, other agencies in the community, you know, through their good volunteerism as well. And we also have some registration program-based fees that are associated. So when we're looking at, you know, who's going to be turning around the spaces, it's still the same model that we're following now. We do have a full-time program coordinator. Thank God that took 5 years to get. And he's a very busy person. But again, we still rely on our volunteers that come in and help to set up the rooms, push in the chairs. We have high expectations for our members on what cleanliness should look like. Every chair should be pushed in and every crumb off the rug when they come in the morning. So we're very aware of, you know, the concerns around the staffing, what that's going to look like, and, you know, how to handle the interest from other communities.
Just a couple other questions from AdCom members who I think are not here tonight to speak them, will the cost estimate that you're expecting include the cost of furnishings, appliances, et cetera, in terms of that?
The total project budget will include that. The cost estimate will be directly for the construction, but we will present what we believe to be as a full budget at that meeting.
Okay, all right. And I suspect I know the answer to this, but in the design development phase that is coming next, is that the place where you look at, are there efficiencies that can be gained by putting plumbing aligned up with, you know, 2 rooms that are going to use similar pipes, that kind of thing, where you sort of look at how you have things laid out and can there be efficiencies found that way?
Should we need a value engineering exercise, that would be one of the exercises we look at.
Thank you.
Just ask, is there any AdCom members online that we?
Yeah, Brittany, can you go to and see who's on the Zoom? Oh, there's no one on the Zoom?
There are no one's
Oh,
hand
okay, no
is-
one's hands, okay. All right, any member of the public have any questions or comments? If you do, come up to the microphone and state your name and address. I think Joe made his way up. Glenn, I'll get you next. We'll get you next, okay, go ahead.
Joe Nevins, 46 Lincoln Street, Chair of the Council on Aging. There are a few things that I know. One is that everyone in this room is getting older, not younger. Second, that every time I've done a construction project and waited, I've paid more money for it. So I think you have a very tough job to do, and I applaud the work you're going to do. But what I'd like you to keep in mind is not just the costs, but the value. And a big part of your job is going to be to balance the value of a facility like this to the residents of Hingham. And I'm willing to take the people who live at Linden Ponds out of the equation, because there are people in Hingham for whom that's not an option. So if you're thinking about the value, I want you to focus on the value of the residents of Hingham, many of whom have been here for a long time, what this will mean to them, what they will be able to do, how it will help their lives, and how it will benefit the community. And I'm not trying to dismiss that it's a very expensive proposition, but I think that if you do not focus on the value to the town, then you will not be doing your job. So thank you.
Thank you, Joe. All right, Glenn, come on up.
Is it on? Yes. I have 3 things.
Name and address, Glenn, we all know you, but.
Glenn Mangurian for Huckleberry Hill. 3 things. First, I would encourage you, if you've never been to the senior center, you must go. You can't make a decision like this without understanding what goes on at a senior center. If you have the opportunity, go for lunch and have the opportunity to talk to the other people that are in attendance there. And third, if you have time on your hands, go to Marshfield and see what a vibrant senior center with a fair amount of space has. So that's the first point. The second point is, I think you have to come to grips with the question, how long do we expect this facility to last? What is the lifespan of this facility? As I remember, the public safety and Foster had a 50-year time horizon. Maybe I'm wrong, but it wasn't 10 years. It wasn't, we're going to build Foster, and then after 10 years, we're going to have to build a new Foster. No. You have to come up with what is the time frame that you're looking at. You certainly cannot project 30 years from now how many seniors are going to be living. If you can, let me know, because I'm going to buy the next lottery ticket. So that's the second thing. The third thing, as a recovering former consultant, I would be approaching this the way that it looks like you're approaching it. And I'm going to call that a bottom-up. And you would look at programs and utilization and populations and make some judgment about the facility size. I'm going to call that bottom-up. But I would also do top-down. Now, I'm not saying pick a number. What I'm saying is understand what the economics, dynamics of a project like this is. So at a previous meeting, I talked about fixed cost and variable costs. This project, because of where it's sited, has a fairly high fixed cost. So when you cut down on the number of square feet, it's not linear. It's not a one-to-one relationship in terms of total project cost. And the second thing is I've talked to Brittany and I've talked to Michelle, and Tom has guidelines, has rules of thumb based on past experience, a 30-year bond with a decreasing principal, the first 8 years, because the first year will always be the highest, and then the impact on property taxes is what the town meeting members care about. They don't care whether it's 26,000, because that doesn't mean anything to them. They don't care whether it's 30 million. That number seems large, but that's an emotional reaction. What they want to know is, what impact is that going to have on my property taxes? And what you should know now, or let me say in the next week, is for the median property tax owner, given Tom's rule of thumb, what impact is that on property taxes? What impact is the 26,000 have on property taxes? And by the way, that number might go up or it might go down, but might you react and say, oh, is that all it is? Or might you say, oh my God, there's no way that we can afford to do that. So there's some knowledge right now in parallel to all the, the sharp pencil and to paper that's going to come with the estimating. But I would encourage you, as the gentleman I believe in blue said, what happens if we cut 5,000 square feet out of this? Or what happens if we add 2,000 square feet to it? What's the general rule of thumb impact on property taxes? Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks for your comments, Greg. Just wanted to respond to two, and one is more than half of AdCom has already made a field trip. We got on a bus with a relatively safe bus driver and went down and spent some significant time getting a tour and asking a lot of questions. And as Ben has shown, some have also done it on their own. So, most of us have, and we'll certainly continue to encourage the others to do the same. And it was super enlightening to see what a vibrant today senior center really is all about. The second is just to let you know, we do have access to, and we have 3 or 4 of our committee who have dedicated time to the town's financial model and how it's updated and how to use that to continue to look at projections for the costs.
Bill, can I add something? Sure. Also, just so everyone knows, we will be, as we did with public safety and Foster, we will be making available the tax impact calculator as soon as we have the estimates.
Yeah. And those impacts will be part of the discussion when we have the numbers. Anyone else? Brittany, anyone online?
There's one person.
Okay, can you recognize him? Yeah, all right. Resident with the iPhone, name and address, please.
It's Amy Farrell. Can you hear me?
Go ahead, Amy.
Thank you. Amy Farrell, 95 Central Street. And I want to thank everybody for all the work that's been done, and the questions have been just fabulous, and the comments have led to some really, really productive conversations. I just do want to follow up on the last piece of this, which seems to be what the next meeting will be about, which is cost. And I think it's going to be really helpful that this particular project will have its costs projected and isolated, and the impact of this cost to a taxpayer's bill will be included. But it's my understanding that this is not happening alone or in isolation, and that there are several potential impacts to our individual bills coming. There's the work to be done in schools. There's the potential for another operating override based on some of the costs that we've added to our base budget. So I think, and especially given that the population that's being served by this particular development, fixed incomes mean, very limited or finite resources. And that's one of the first things that was highlighted in the 2023 UMass update, is that folks want to be able to stay in place and age in place. And so our tax bills are the biggest driver of that. So I'm looking forward to a conversation in the future that talks not about just this particular program's impact, but also the other known and expected costs that are coming, so that folks can plan. And so I just want to thank everyone for all their time on this. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Amy. All right, seeing no other hands up? One more, okay, go ahead. Sorry, let me go online first, I'll get to you. Somebody online?
Yes, Karen.
Karen, go ahead, name and address.
Hey, everybody, it's Karen Johnson, 16 Berkeley Circle. I'd just like to reiterate Amy's comments. Really have appreciated the discussion tonight. The presentation was terrific. Advisory committee questions were really thoughtful and have given me a lot of additional things to think about. I just wanted to speak briefly to a process point, it kind of coming from other building committee experiences I had, both as a member of AdCom and as a member of the Board of Selectmen and as a participant at town meeting. And that's just really the importance, once town meeting approves projects, that both the advisory committee and the select board really take leadership of those projects. And I just want to point to the fact that in 2020, town meeting approved an article where the select board would charge the building committee. And then in 2023, when that charge was expanded to include the Bear Cove site, it's actually the select board that's in charge of that appropriation, expending that appropriation. So, obviously we are all accountable to town meeting at the end of the day, but it was certainly my expectation last year and my expectation from experience that both the advisory committee and the select board will lead on this project, and that the building committee will be responsive to that leadership. And I think, your constructive dialogue tonight demonstrates that. But I certainly hope that is the process going forward. Thank you.
Great, thank you. In the back, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Linda D'Angelo. I'm a resident in Weymouth, your neighbor, and I am president of the Back River Watershed Association. And I applaud your town for the amazing work you are doing to provide services for residents of Hingham, their elders, and others. And I appreciate the fact that you need a new senior center. The one reason that I am here, not to dispute any of your plan, it sounds like a fantastic opportunity, but I am concerned about the environmental impacts. We are talking about construction of the senior center, a large-scale project that will impact the Back River and its vital estuary. As I understand this is proposed to be constructed within the ACEC boundary, only 500 feet from the river. The river is a beautiful place. It's a wonderful attraction. We are so blessed that we have had people to preserve this area. Many of you may know the founder of our organization, Mary F. Toomey. She worked with Dr. Mary Sears of Woods Hole, a world-renowned oceanographer. And the two of these wonderful Marys worked for decades to preserve, restore, and clean up the Back River, to restore its fisheries, which is an ongoing issue. And of course, when we're talking about future of generations and something that isn't, this is a natural environment. We can't reconstruct the Back River, the wetlands, the wonderful forests there, the aquatic life that it is supporting. And this is something we need to seriously consider about relocation of this wonderful project. So I'm asking you, in the spirit of cooperation, the agreement in 1982 of the area of critical environmental concern that the Commonwealth of Massachusetts designated the Weymouth Back River, and also the fact that it is also designated one of Massachusetts' special places. It is a local scenic river and a wildlife refuge. These are significant designations, and I think that this is a real consideration for this advisory board and the rest of you that are planning this wonderful project. I'm asking you to reconsider a location. We have to remember that these areas cannot be duplicated. This is not something we can create again, human beings. It is a wonderful natural resource and it needs to be protected. So consider the fact that we have now a restored river for the most part, but continued restoration is needed. We have over 100 salt marshes, acres, mud flats. All of the species that this river is supporting is amazing. As a matter of fact, the history of this river, some of you may know. I understand that's also being proposed in your plan to bring out the history, and I think that's admirable. But we have to recognize that this is a very unique, small river with a big, valuable estuary that impacts the fisheries in the outer waters of Hingham and Quincy and so forth. That this is part of a sub-basin of Boston Harbor. And the late Dr. Mary Sears, she came specifically to work with Mary Toomey to save this area, to protect from this kind of impact. When we look at the wetlands alone, we have laws that protect our wetlands, and we should be considering the fact that the estuaries control the nurseries for the offshore fisheries. The Back River estuary being one of the most important ecological food resources in the region, and that its resources were limitless, providing an important food source. The Back River serves as a fertile breeding ground
Ma'am,
for
you have
over...
1 minute.
Thank you, yes, for many finfish and so forth. These are the comments of Dr. Sears. And I really hope that you have success with your project. I'm only asking you to please reconsider the location. Maybe there's another place in Bear Cove Park that would be perfect. Thank you, and I respectfully wish you all the best.
Thank you for being here tonight. Yes. All right, with that, I'm going to turn to the respective boards and see if they want to join their meeting. We do have 3 agenda items left, very briefly, but Carol, would you like to adjourn the advisory committee?
Can you tell me if there's any AdCom online, so I have to do a roll call vote?
Yeah, Tina's still on.
Okay. All right, we'll do a roll call vote. Motion, anybody? Second. There we go. Brenda? Ted? Elaine? John? David? Alan? Jerry? Brian? Ben? And Tina.
Aye.
Thank you. We're adjourned.
All right, building committee, like to adjourn your meeting.
Beth?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye. The entire board that's present is here and voted unanimously to get the hell out of here.
All right, thank you. Thanks, everybody. Good seeing you again. All right, if everybody could exit quietly, if you don't mind, we do have 3 quick items left. If you could exit quietly so we can wrap up, that'd be appreciated. Thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is to consider appointments. Are there any appointments this evening?
No.
No.
No appointments. Next item on the agenda is public comment. I think we've heard public comment with the substantive items. Any member of the public have public comment this evening? Seeing none, we'll turn to Town Administrator Select Board reports. Brittany, anything tonight? No. All right,
Nothing to add, thank you.
thank you. Tom?
Only that Jennifer Young did a wonderful job tonight. We're lucky to have her.
Yes, second that. Julie, anything this evening?
No, thank you.
Liz?
Nothing to add, thank you.
I also have nothing as well. So with that, I would take a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor, Liz?
Aye.
Julie?
Aye.
I'm an aye as well. We are adjourned. Thanks, everybody. Good
Aye,
meeting.
thank
Appreciate
you.
everybody being here.